Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Game Dev Show. I'm here with Andrew, and I believe Salim will be joining in soon, along with I'm not sure who else. So we'll see. It'll be a fun day. We've got quite a few interesting topics to talk about. The first one being mastermind groups that I'll dive into in just a moment after we say hello to Andrew. And then we were just talking about some games and quite a few other things. So, hey, Andrew, how's it going? How's your week been?
It's been okay. I went to the snow last week for a couple of days with friends. It wasn't supposed to be snow, but it ended up snowing because of the polar vortex that we're having here in the North America, or that we did have. I think it's over now.
Oh, yeah, perfect
Yeah.
timing. I was freezing too. Spent most of the weekend at Disneyland with kids, and I put up a poll on which lightsaber to build. I went with the winning option, which happened to be the right option.
Purple.
But last night it worked, and today it doesn't turn on anymore. So I had to figure out what happened. I don't know if the batteries are dead or if it just froze to death in the cold last night. But we'll get it figured out. Anyway, I guess, do you have anything big you wanted to talk about this week, or should we just jump right into some of the topics? Any news or interesting things that have popped up?
So on the Infinity PBR front, we've got two new low poly packs out somewhat recently: a Goblin and a Gargoyle. Those are fun. They're part of the bundle. I'm working on some new texture pack, which is very exciting. But to be determined on that because I've been wrangling with bugs in applications on that one. And then I bought that game Elden Ring. We can talk about that at some point if you want. I'm going to return it. Spoiler alert. Probably going to return it.
Well,
But
yeah,
I
that'll be an interesting one. So
yeah.
it's funny you mentioned gargoyles. My 4-year-old keeps pretending she's a gargoyle now. Like for the last couple days, she's been running around saying that she's a gargoyle and growling at people, cracking me up.
You
I
got
think
to make sure she knows that gargoyles can also turn into stone half the time.
yeah,
So
she turns into stone
okay.
and then waits, and
Oh,
then wakes up as a gargoyle to scare everybody. That's her whole strategy. It's interesting.
it works for the gargoyles.
Yeah, I think she may have watched like an episode of the old cartoon, the old whatever it was, Nickelodeon or Disney cartoon, Gargoyles. I think it was
Yeah.
Disney. Yeah, she's now she's a gargoyle. There was a question that popped up in chat that I just wanted to point out because I had an answer to it, and it was about if anyone was playing the Line War demo and they were just impressed what can be achieved by two indie developers. And I was just wanted to say yes. I've actually been playing it myself. Played quite a few games. Right before I went to Disneyland, actually. If you haven't seen it, it's another YouTuber who's built it, and they've got a demo up on Steam. You can just go grab Line War on Steam, and I think you can watch just streams of him playing it and talking about the game. There's a lot of info, and the tutorials were really good on it too. The Line War tutorials. Maybe I should just pull that up and screen share it real quick too for anybody who wants to see what it looks like while I talk about it. But I definitely recommend go check it out. It was like this strategy game that's a little bit different. It's kind of a different take on a strategy theme where you're setting up orders and assigning the orders, and then the units are kind of all automatic. So units auto generate from the buildings that you place and then go into the things that you give them commands to do. You're not micromanaging things so much as kind of like doing a high level management. It's definitely a different take on an RTS, and I'd say it was interesting enough to check out. And here's the videos up for anybody who's watching the version with the video live. So go check it out. It's free on the demo right now. You can go play it and see if you like it or not. Give them feedback and tell them what you do like, what you don't like, and make it into an awesome game. So definitely go check that out. So I wanted to pop that up because it was up there.
Yeah, looks cool. I was just watching the trailer while you were talking. I like the ideas around things being automatic, and it seemed to one of its goals may be to simplify the whole 4X thing, so that like they mentioned in the trailer, I saw that there's only 2 resources, and so it's not like 5 different resources that you have to balance between all 5, and the math gets unwieldy at that point. And I think it's an interesting take on what is often a very, very complicated genre.
Yeah, it was fun. So definitely check it out. Go play it if you haven't already. So I wanted to also talk about the mastermind group stuff. So Actually, I should probably screen share again and just give everybody one last chance. I'm going to start doing the matching tomorrow. Uh, and the mastermind groups, before I just talk about the matching, just really quick recap on what they are for anybody who hasn't seen, and give an update on what the process is going to look like. So I'm going to screen share one more time. The mastermind groups that are setting up are going to be for game developers or new and experienced game developers. There may be groups of people that are about 4 to 6 developers per group. I think I'm going to set them at 6, and then allow them to, as people fall out or decide it's not right for them, drop down to 4. So that way they'll be a little bit bigger than optimal. But if people drop out or whatever, you can make it work with anywhere in that range. We don't start on the higher end, so we don't start groups with 4 people and then 2 people can't make it and suddenly it's no longer a group. It's just 2 people meeting. So the groups would be 4 to 6 developers and meet weekly and just kind of go over their projects, the progress, stuff that they're working on, the problems that they're having, and it'd be 1-hour meetings. The meetings are relatively straightforward. The way that you go through is just talk about the problems that you're having, present solutions, and because you'll be meeting with the same people every week, they'll understand the context of things, and within a few weeks you'll start to get usually really good constructive feedback. I expect that to happen for 80 to 90% of the people. Obviously it's not going to be perfect for everybody, but hopefully it's perfect for you, right? If you join. The reasons you'd want to join, I think they're all kind of listed there, really just so that you can get good feedback from other people, kind of progress faster and help other people progress faster and get good feedback and get past their problems. It's also really good for just making connections and networking. A lot of the bigger things that I've done came through groups or friends from people in groups that I'm in and just contacts that I have. So it's a good way to meet people, get an idea of what people are doing, and get some feedback on the stuff that you're doing, as well as have just a group of people to be somewhat accountable to, so that you've got something like every week that's driving you to be kind of pushing forward. Requirements, really just that you show up and participate, and the responsibilities, again, just that you show up and participate. And then the meeting times will be mostly figured out by you. So the plan now is I've got a big list of all of the people, and we're right around 500 developers so far. I'm going to put up another, I'll send out some info, I guess, tomorrow or the next day, where you'll be able to kind of nail down an optimal time for when you would want to meet. And we'll start putting the groups together from that. I've got the kind of high level of what's good for everybody, but now I want to go down to let's lock it down into some times. We'll set up the times. You'll get a Discord server and a Discord chat to just join up with. You'll have a link to either a Google or a Zoom meeting. I'm not sure which one I'm going to use. Probably go with the Google meeting first. And then I'll give you a bunch of info on how to get the group started, and send that all kind of through email. I'm going to spend a lot of this week just kind of getting that together for everybody. And then I think that the meetings will probably start next week, either next week or the week after that, depending on how quickly I can get everybody together and get everybody into a group. And then you just meet once a week after that, and then go from there. And if you want to adjust things as a group, obviously you'll be your own group. You'll be free to do whatever you want, to change times, adjust things however you need. Cost to join is completely free. Just gotta show up and participate. If you want to sign up, just go to the game.courses/mm and register right now. There's a little Google form at the bottom. It might pop up a CAPTCHA. Just scroll up and go fill it in. So that's my whole pitch on it. Again, I really just wanted to share it and say this is kind of like the last chance, because tomorrow I'm going to start sending out the emails and stuff for the thing. And really the whole reason for this is just because I think mastermind groups are super handy and helpful. I am in a couple of them. I think they're one of the most useful things that I do, and thought, hey, why not? It doesn't hurt me at all to set this up for everybody. So why not just try setting it up, and let's see what we can do. So that's it. That's my whole pitch on it. I'm going to shut up now and just ask everybody to hit the like button and subscribe and all that stuff instead.
500 people signed up. That's a huge number.
Yeah, it's going to be big. That's why I've got to kind of automate as much as possible. But I've got a plan, I think, that's going to make this work pretty well.
So if you randomly pop into one group each week, by 2 years in, you'll have finished it.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. I don't know that that's likely. What I'm probably going to do is pop into a couple and then do a bunch of pre-recorded info too on kind of how to run the groups. Maybe record a couple group calls so that people can kind of just watch the process, see what works and what doesn't work, and kind of get some help there too. Because I want to get everybody into the groups, but I really want to get people some guidance there too. I was actually gonna reach out to my buddy Chris too, Chris Lucian, and see if he has some ideas or advice too, because he's really good at, I think, organizing people and getting people in these kinds of situations. So I'm gonna reach out to him too and see if he's got some thoughts on it.
I realize this is probably your master ploy to be thanked in as many indie games as possible.
Oh. No, it was just literally a random idea. I was in a group and somebody else asked about groups, and I was like, I don't know, just make one. Like, why not? And then it's like, I thought maybe like 40 people or something would be interested, you know? And I was like, this would be easy. Just like 40 people, go make like, 10 groups or something, 5 groups, maybe it'll be 20 people. I didn't expect it was going to be like 500 something people, but yeah, we can scale it up. It's not that hard. And just use a little bit of software and automate the things that are difficult at scale, right? Like scheduling. That part I can automate and figure out. The rest of it, not too difficult.
Fair
All
enough.
right, it looks like we've got another guest coming in, by the way. Anybody want to guess who it is? Everybody guess in chat who it is. And once the right name is picked, then I'll hit the button and pop them in. Now I'm gonna wait. Also, give him a second to get set up. But that was my play there.
There's a
Also,
question. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. No, I was just gonna mention the giveaway. You go ahead.
Okay.
What's the
There's a
question?
question in the chat asking me if I do any modeling and scripting myself, and the answer is yes. I do all this Infinity PBR scripting. I do, and oh, there you go. Hey, Salim.
Hello.
It was Salim, so they guessed it, so I popped him in. So you do all the Infinity PBR scripting?
I do all the scripting, and I do a lot of the texturing. I don't do modeling. That is not a skill I have in my belt. But I do, or the animating. But I do the texturing and a lot of the texturing and the scripting, and then all the Unity integration and stuff like that. And Ryan Reynolds, yeah. Why isn't Ryan Reynolds here?
I mean,
He was supposed to be the guest, but Salim showed up instead. Sorry, everybody.
That, we resemble each other.
He looked just like him.
Yeah. I thought this was a Mint Mobile ad for a minute.
Oh. So you're not a modeler, huh, Andrew? How do you go about getting art done, by the way? This is something I was thinking about doing a video about sometime soon. So maybe we could just talk about this for a minute if people are interested. Like how you go about the process of getting a piece of art made. Say you want, a building, or there's some character that you've decided is the next character to make. What's your process look like for that?
So I can talk about the process we have in place right now, because I have artists I work with that I've been working with for quite a while, and they're basically on contract, and they they get paid for what they do, for their hours that they work, and that's my preferred method until I can make enough money to put them on full time and just give them a paycheck, just to basically have an open contract and say, hey, we need this, and then they do it when they can. So from that point on, like, let's say if I want to do a new gargoyle, we already have a gargoyle, but let's say I want to do a new gargoyle, I'll usually go onto Pinterest and just look for gargoyles and get a whole bunch of concept art from the internet and send those along, and I'll highlight a few key things I like, oh, I want the wings to be kind of like this, or there needs to be faces like this for mesh morphing, or this or that, and we'll talk about that, and then they'll go and they do it. They do the modeling. The model comes in, I do the texture on that, and then eventually I will send that file, the model and the textures, over to Katie, who does the rigging, animations, and the blend shapes. At this point, I no longer have to tell her what animations we need. She just does them, and the blend shapes too, because she's been doing it for almost 6 years now with me. So it's been a very long time. And so she will do that when she has time, and then she'll send it back. And if everything works, we'll put it on the asset store. That's
Nice.
yeah. But the difficult part of this is really getting new people to work with. Last week I mentioned that about level design, that I was looking for someone there, but the reality is, like, I like working with the same people for years, and part of the reason I like doing that is because it's so hard to find new people to work with. Not saying that I don't like the people I work with, I do, and I wouldn't keep working with them if I didn't. But it's very difficult to find new people to work with. I feel like there's a spectrum between two spectrums. There's on one side there's individuals, all the way up to companies, outsourced companies that are large companies that would work for any AAA studio. And then there's prices from dirt cheap that you look at that and you're like, no way can anyone be making money and getting paid appropriately for that amount of money, to that's way too much. You found out I live near San Francisco and now you think I'm rich. I'm not. So I can't work with you. And that's happened, by the way. But once people find out where I live, they change their pricing on me, which um, but and I think the problem is those don't scale together. Like the quality that you get, well, I guess the third spectrum will be quality you get out of a person or a team. The quality you get does not scale with price, and it does not scale with team size. So you can get somebody who is cheap and an individual and produces the best quality ever, or you can get someone who's expensive and a team that produces crap and just is a pain to work with. And
Comes
it's
down
very
comes down to
difficult.
passion and how much they care about it. Just like
Exactly.
Yep.
And there's the understanding of just working with other people. Being an international internet based contractor is probably difficult with communication, understanding what someone needs. Last week I had reached out to a animator. I've got some characters in the backlog that I wanted to get through, so figure if I can get another animator. And they had good animations in their portfolio. It looked right up my alley, and they unfortunately said they don't do blend shapes. They said, I can do all of that, but I don't do blend shapes. And I was like, that's too bad, because I need blend shapes, so I'm not working with that person, which is kind of a shame, because blend shapes are probably pretty easy in that flow, but I guess this person didn't want to learn how to do it. So yeah,
Got to offer him a little bit more. Add the blend shapes.
Well, it was an hourly rate, so
Oh.
he'd be paid more.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah.
Interesting. So when you go to look for new people, I guess so. Like, say, like I'm a new developer, I'm somebody watching, and I'm looking for an artist to have a character made, and I don't already have somebody that's been working for me for 6 years, and I've already gone and figured out the concepts. And real quick before we answer this, I want to just show an example of what you were talking about, because I've done exactly this recently. I just go around, I find the things that kind of match, like loosely around the theme, and then tell the artist which things from each one make sense, or that kind of thing. I find that using something like Millinode or some other board where I can just slap a bunch of images together and share it makes it really easy. Do you use something like that, or what do you do to share your concepts real quick? So say like you've got the idea and you're going to find art, I guess. What are your 3 steps before you've found the modeler, or your modeler steps?
Yeah, so for the artboard itself, I will usually just paste out links to Pinterest, rather than an artboard. It's just more of a list link or link list.
Here,
And
do this. Just
yeah,
copy them in. Here, I just paste in the links and it creates the image. I just copy the link to the image.
perfect. Yeah, that works too. I use Airtable for my work with people I work with once they're on board. And so there's just individual lines for each project, and that will have all the lists of links in there. We could upload images as well, but I just haven't done that at this point. But yeah, so that's the process there. Just to find the stuff. Though the one thing to keep in mind, and somebody on my Discord brought this up the other day. When you're putting up, concept art from other people, you're going to get stuff from IP from other companies that you might not be aware of. And it's important for the modeler to not make exactly what's in those images, to make their own version that's inspired by those images. And I guess one of my helmets in one of my packs is somewhat close to a Skyrim helmet. At the time, I had never played Skyrim, so I had no idea that. Probably I got concept art from Skyrim and said, hey, this helmet looks cool. Make something like this. They made something like that. It's not exactly like that. There's definitely some key differences. And then with the mesh morphing, it looks very different once you morph it around, and the textures are different as well. But it's close enough that people, this one person at least, looked at it and said, hey, that looks like it's from Skyrim. It's not. It's very obviously not from Skyrim, but it's close to the point where I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm going to put that out there. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know where the line is, but certainly, that's something to keep in mind when you're working on stuff.
No, I mean, it's just a high fantasy helmet. Unless it's like super ultra unique, it's just a high fantasy helmet, so it's going to look like another high fantasy game. Especially if it's a piece of generic armor. So yeah.
Yeah, the key aspects like a cross right here and some other things aren't there. So it's clearly not take this and make a 1-to-1 copy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So what places do you start looking? Like you've got this board, where do you start looking for the new modelers?
Yeah, so that was an interesting one. I used to always I've tried various places. I've tried Fiverr, I've tried other things like that. I can't remember the names of all of them now. The ones I've used though successfully are the Unity forums prior to them closing down the job board. If you remember years ago, they closed the job board and made it onto Unity Connect, which never worked. That never worked right. And so once the Unity forums were great, I say great because it worked, but it wasn't great. And then I've used CG Trader. And there's some key benefits to CG Trader why I like their system. And then now I've been using the Unity forums again now that the jobs boards are back. In fact, I'm pretty sure I was one of the first people to post on the new jobs boards when it came back. I saw it and I was like, ooh, I'm going to post something. And that was fun, maybe a year ago or so. But it's still challenging to get people, the talking to people, figuring out if someone's going to work out, negotiating on price and all that is challenging. And then but I'll say CG Trader has one key aspect that it puts it above the Unity forums, and that's the escrow system. They have you pay up front. So let's say I'm going to pay someone $1,000 for a gig. I pay up front, so the money's there. CG Trader has the money. We do all the communications through CG Trader. I try to be as clear as possible with as many examples as possible, as many bullet points as possible. Since we're speaking to people who don't necessarily speak English as a first language, I try to be as plain as possible with my language as well, so that there's no miscommunication. We want this to be successful. Everyone wants this to be successful. However, if the end result is something that is not successful, I can say I'm not going to pay for this. And CG Trader will look at the chat history, look at the work submitted, look at the brief submitted, and decide whether or not the artist should be paid or not. And in every case where I've tried to get my money back, I've gotten my money back, which has been extremely helpful. And that alleviates probably one of the biggest concerns from my side, at least, of this kind of work. And that's getting screwed by an artist who takes money and doesn't deliver, or who doesn't deliver and then just hounds you for the pay, even though they've not delivered anything that you can use. And I mean, that's the biggest one. I was going to pay someone. I needed a horse. I wanted a horse. We have a horse now, but this was before we had the horse, and I really wanted a horse. And I found a horse on CG Trader, contacted the developer and said, hey, I need a new horse, similar in quality to that horse. And they delivered something that was not at all like that horse. It was terrible. And it was amateur hour. And they were hounding me to be paid. Like, they're like, okay, finish it. I'm done. Finish it. Click the pay. And I'm like, whoa, you need to calm down. And I looked at it and I was like, nope, I'm not going to pay for this. And I got my $1,400 back. So, yeah, well, that looks cool.
It does look cool. Got me looking at animals on here. I'm going to have to give CG Trader a try. It's not one of the ones I've used. I mean, I've used it to buy art assets, but not to actually contract artists. So I'm going to have to give this one a shot. It'd be interesting.
There's so much good stuff on there. And I think I found another problem. It's not really a problem. It's just a quirk of the world. The similar when I tried with I think it was ArtStation. I may have gone to looking for where here you can look at that whatever that character was, that boar character, and you can go to the artist and say, hey, I like your work. Can I book you to do stuff? Which is a great way of going about it. But so many of the people will then tell you, well, I can't make it game ready. Like they really good with sculpting in ZBrush, but they have no idea how to make it into a game ready model. Or in other cases, somebody has told me, well, I can do ZBrush, but my friend did the modeling. We were in school and we're no longer in school. So, or the low poly conversion in Maya. And so they can't do that aspect. So there's sometimes people unfortunately can't do the whole flow from, sculpting to game ready on these platforms. And that is unfortunate when you find something you really like and someone who wants to work with you, but they just can't do the whole thing.
Yeah, I found that to be the case often too, but it's through the other sites that I go through, and usually I just have to find somebody else to finish it up or something, or find someone else. But yeah, this is definitely a good option. I think I'm going to check this out. The other one, the one that I like to use a lot, Fiverr and Upwork, really good. One of the things I've noticed if you use Fiverr too is that if you find artists that have like very few reviews, they tend to have things really cheap, or if they have like no reviews, I always try to give them a shot because sometimes they're just amazing artists. They're just trying to build up their portfolio, and I see I've seen some of the best work out of people who had 0 reviews on Fiverr. I'll put it that way. I got some stuff I'll have to show off soon.
Have you had issues with, because they don't have an escrow system, right? So you pretty much pay and that's it. So you get what you get.
No, you do have to go through, and it's very similar. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but you have to go through, approve the offer. They hold the money, and then once you accept the thing, then they do it, and they have like a dispute system. Although usually I just approve it and I'll write them off.
Yeah.
Most of the time, the things on Fiverr aren't. $1,400 is a pretty high one, right? I think most of the ones are $100 or less or so. Some of them under $1,000 at least.
Yeah.
Relatively cheap compared to traditional game art prices, I would say.
Yes, some of the outsourced companies that I end up talking to they quickly start saying things will cost $10,000, $15,000, and while that might be an okay price for Zynga to pay or something, it's a little too steep for my pockets.
It's a lot harder when you're not spending someone else's money, right? You're not spending the investor's money.
You mean you're not a billionaire?
Yes, no, not yet. Not yet.
I like that optimism. Nice.
Well, inflation, at this rate, we'll all be billionaires.
Wow. Okay, so you're almost a billionaire.
So there's a question on here for Andrew. Do you use more soft surface modeling, hard surface, or a mix?
If I'm understanding the question right, mix. Depends on the thing, right? Bodies are soft. So a lot of soft surface there for creatures and stuff. If that's the right question, if I might be misunderstanding soft surface versus hard surface, but
that's how I
hard surface being like armor and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was a question for me on whether or not I can recommend or suggest any learning resources for the editor UI with the new UI elements, because they're having a hard time with the documentation. And the answer to that is I still don't use the UI element stuff in anything unless I absolutely have to. Not because there's anything really wrong with it. I just don't have a need to yet. I haven't found a scenario where I need to make the switch, and I don't know if it's going to change again or how much it'll change. So until I need to use it, I just don't really use it. So I don't know of any great resources either. I'll see if I can find any, though, if anybody knows some.
I thought your response would be yes, and when I make a video next week.
No, no, it's the exact opposite. That might be something good. I'm actually putting together the conference, the talks and schedule this week too. So maybe if somebody's got a really good talk on that they'd like to present, submit that. I don't think we had one on UI, the new UI system, so that might be cool. And maybe there is one in there. I don't know. Keep an eye out for that. If you have one though, submit it too. That's just game.courses/speakers. You can go submit that. See, were there any other cool questions? Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably useful and handy. It's just not something I've needed to use.
Yeah. So official Siam, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your screen name there, is asking about making LODs automatically. I don't know if there's the different methods available for making a high poly sculpt down to a lower poly sculpt. We're talking there millions of polygons down to 70K, 80K polygons, and that's still considered pretty high poly for a game, but it's game ready, but it's still pretty high poly. Once you get it there are LOD systems in place. There was one back in the day called Simply Gone or something like that.
Yeah.
They got bought out. I think they're still around, but they're more expensive now. The problem with them is they didn't retain blend shapes, which was a big oversight. I've used an asset called Mantis Lod. They used to have a free version. I think it's now $50 on the asset store, but it works really well. It basically will. It's within Unity. It works in Unity. You choose your meshes. You can choose what percent you want to reduce it by, and it will reduce every single sub mesh. It will retain blend shapes, and from that you can basically so if you've got a larger thing, maybe a helmet, you can reduce that more than you reduce a small thing. Which if you reduce it the same 90% for each one, the small thing will disappear. So you can pick and choose how you do your LODs there. And I always suggest people use something like that. I actually stopped making LODs for my stuff because I realized that while it was cool that they were LOD ready for characters and stuff, it made no sense because every game is different and every platform is different. And, 5 years ago, mobile platforms were much slower than they are today. So what is considered high poly or low poly is really subjective, to the point where I felt I was doing people a disservice by giving them LODs that weren't actually the LODs they needed for their project. And I think for my suggestion would be that work with from the asset store, work with the stuff people give you, and then when you get to the point where you're optimizing and you realize, hey, this is causing, there's too many polygons in this character or whatever, then go into this Mantis, make some LODs, make a higher, your top LOD, your main character doesn't have to be the same poly count that was given by the asset store. You can pick and choose there, but do that based on your game and your platforms that you're targeting, rather than just saying, well, it's this industry standard to make LODs, so therefore I must do that. You don't have to necessarily. So make that decision yourself, I think. But use this tool is great. I always tell people to use it. It's good.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab this one. I think you mentioned it before, and it's something I need to get. So I'm gonna have to grab that and check out. I'll do that after the show. Slim, you look really low down there. I wish I could drag people around in here, move things around a little bit more in Restream. One day. Well, Slim, did you have anything you wanted to share this week? I realized I didn't get a chance to just pop in. Anything new going on, or anything big or interesting that's popped up you wanted to talk about?
Me, I just been working like crazy. Elden Ring came out this weekend, and it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I haven't had a chance to play it. I've been gone, and both of you have some disagreements on this apparently. So Elden Ring, great game or worst game?
Well, hang on. It depends. I think a part of this is definitely going to depend on if you are a Souls fan, or a Souls-like game fan, specifically a 3D Souls-like game. Because playing the 2D ones, it's a different experience. So the question is, are you a Souls fan, Andrew?
So I've never played it. I hear it's hard, but I can tell you what my reaction to 26 minutes of Elden Ring was.
Oh, okay, sweet. Because I have a story of a friend as well who had some interesting situations. But
so I played most of the time. Most of that, I think it was 26 or 36 minutes, something like that. Most of that time was spent making the character and watching the cinematics.
Mhm.
So not actually playing the game. And we can definitely talk about the character creation process because I have some thoughts on that.
Yeah.
But once I got into the game, I realized it was meant for controllers, and I should have just hooked this up and turned that on.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't. So I was doing mouse and keyboard. The controls were wonky. I did not like that at all.
Yeah. Jump is on F, and
Yeah, like back was
standard
Q
controls.
instead of escape. It was non-standard, which
Yeah,
that was
they have a
odd.
history of bad. They don't do. Because Dark Souls started Demon Souls on the PlayStation 3, and when they first released a Souls game on PC, the PC controls were so bad, and I think they didn't let you remap them or something. There was something really
Mm.
bad about it. And I want to say they didn't support controller for at least something like all the things came together, and you're just like, why would you guys even do this? So yeah, like I'm not surprised that that the default controls were weird. When I saw that like F to I use a controller, but when I saw F to jump, I'm like, wait, why would you put this here? So of course space is to dodge. So I guess it's an interesting question of where do you put a dodge if jump's going to be on the center of the space bar.
Yeah.
F is weird because F to me is more like an interact button, like in Mass Effect and stuff. So it is kind of weird location for it. But go ahead.
Yeah. So it took a while, and even their menu, just in the character creation, was hard to handle. Like
Mhm.
you couldn't just click what you had to click a slider to activate it, then
Yeah.
modify it, and you couldn't just click another one. You had
Yeah.
to hit, I think it was E or Q to go back,
Oh God.
and then to click another. It was tedious.
Yeah.
But once I got into the game, I was confused by all these little messages that were there, and I realize now that these are messages from other people
Yeah.
playing the game. And this is
Yeah.
where it gets interesting. So I played the game. I started ignoring the messages. At first, I thought I was supposed to read them all, and I was like, "These don't make any sense. Why are they here?" Then I went out and I found some bad guy,
Mhm.
and it lasted 3 seconds. They
Yeah.
hit me, and then suddenly I was dead or something. I don't really know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the next scene, I go into this room. Graphics are pretty nice, so I like that. And there's this lever. It's an obvious lever. You got to pull it. It's
Mhm.
right there. There's no, and there's a message on it that says try the lever. I'm like, well, duh. So I'm figuring out how to try the lever, but every time you get close, the interact button reads the message that says try the lever.
Yeah.
So you can't actually try the lever because there's a message on it that blocks whatever the area, the trigger area is blocked by the message. So you can't try the lever. And I'm pretty sure that's what I need to do to move to the next thing. I'm pretty sure the middle floor would probably drop down, make some stairs or something. That's what it looked like it was going to happen. But I couldn't do it because somebody put a message there and just blocked anyone who's in this server from progressing. And so it was late. I was annoyed, so I stopped, and now I think I'm going to just ask for my money back because $60.
So just to give you insight into that, it's unfortunate. Their message system is actually cool because it's meant to, because you only have limited words you can use there. You don't type your own messages.
Mm.
It was meant as a way for people to kind of help other. You can play the game offline and not see any of the blood stains or any messages. That lever is a trick. The player put the message there is trolling you. The way that their interaction system works is if there is another action close by, you can select which action you want to use. So the lever doesn't have an interact, or would have given you like an arrow left, right to choose which action you want to use. If you just step into the center of that little thing, the floor will go down. I got caught too because I'm like, hey, why does this work? But then previous to that, I had already experienced, and of course I've played, the game series before. I'd already experienced the fact that yes, they do a switching of what action you want to do, which makes sense because the floor is gonna be littered with all these interactions from messages. And it just makes sense in general for a video game. But yeah, if you just step into the middle floor, it goes down normal. The lever, I assume you probably come back to this place, or it may have just been part of the environment. Well, it would be a weird part to just have in your environment, because other levers in a game are going to be similar and they will work. Or it could just have been From Software just completely messing with people, and the message thing is just players compounding the fact that it is there. But yeah, it's you definitely got trouble. Thankfully, you didn't jump off of the side of anything or listen to any of those messages, because people love to do that as well.
I assumed I would die if I did that.
Awesome. You have passed the Souls test. But there's some other problems. So in the other games, they would have like a sparkling item behind a bunch of barrels, and generally in Souls, you run around, you roll through barrels and stuff. So because they changed the messages used to be like three claw marks kind of deal or something like that, and they were orange. Now they're glowing white and they look like an item. So if you put a message behind a barrel, someone will go running over there and then they'll think they're getting an item, and it's just a stupid message that says "haha, precious item." Like it's goofy. You can, like I say, you can play offline and experience the game in a different way. Unfortunately, playing offline for Souls games is not as fun, because sometimes people are giving you real messages, and also like the blood stains are good indicators for traps. Like if a chest is a mimic, if you walk up to a chest and one chest is like no blood stains around it, but the other chest is like 15 of them, you should probably just hit that chest because it's a mimic. So like a lot of cool, like subtle gameplay elements from the way that they do their online stuff. It's just, unfortunately, you give this to the world, and different personalities are gonna take advantage of it. But yeah, I had no issues getting in. I already knew it was a controller based game, so I just synced up my controller and played. The character creation was kind of goofy because you pick an archetype, but then when you go into the archetype, you can pick an archetype again.
Yeah.
So it just seemed weird. They should have just gone to that scene. I'm not, and because the front scene doesn't give you any information, but the drop down to choose an archetype, once you get past it, actually gives you information. So it's kind of a weird flow. And of course, they're not known for like really involved character creation stuff. So I wasn't expecting to be able to customize my character a whole bunch, because you're generally covered up with stuff anyway. But yeah, my friend, me and Jason's friend, actually, Lenny, he I got him to log on because it's a co-op game, and he had so many issues. It was about an hour before he could even play. His controller wouldn't sync. He has a PS4 controller. It wouldn't sync right with the game. He had to, like, the game crashed on him at one point and had not saved his progress, which is odd because he had already hit a save point. The game wouldn't shut down for 5 minutes or so after closing it, or Steam wouldn't recognize it. So it was just like not great for him. But once he got in, and we got into each other's games, like, he had a blast, and I had to actually log off early, and he kept playing. Like, he's actually texting me this morning with some stuff he had discovered. But yeah, it's the game itself is good. I mean, if you're a Souls fan, it is a Souls game. It's just open world, which I'm still trying to figure out how it is different from a normal Souls game, because it definitely feels, other Souls games feel like you're in a big open world. So I need to play it a little bit more to hit that point where having the horse and stuff is important. But yeah, I got like mounted combat and just like really cool refinements to the system that is a Souls game that feels really good. Graphically, it's great. It's not mind-blowingly great, which that's fine. All the animations and everything work really, really well. The game isn't like super buggy as far as like combat and stuff goes. The one thing that I do dislike is the early Souls games didn't have the concept of tracking. I'm not sure if you guys know what tracking is. You guys know
where you lock on to the bad guy and
no. So tracking for the NPC. So in an action game, when a guy does a big swipe and he comes down, the big swipe is the tell, and you as a player decide, okay, well, I'm going to dodge forward, I'm going to dodge around it, whatever, because I know he's going to come straight down. So tracking is when they start swinging down, and because you've dodged over here, the thing goes like this to track you. It is pretty infuriating a Souls type game because like every dodge and everything is all linked to stamina and things like that. So you like it is really frustrating to like see a tell, react to it, and because you were a little late on your dodge, even though your dodge would have cleared if they just came down normal, for them to track and hit you, it can be really frustrating, especially if it's like on the line, like, oh my god, like I haven't beaten this guy yet, I'm getting really close, and like last hit will get him, and just a track just hits you. It's really frustrating. And Dark Souls 1, they didn't have tracking, or it was really subtle, not noticeable. And then Dark Souls 2, they had a bunch of tracking, and people were kind of angry about it. Game's still good. Like, can't deny that it's not fun and really exciting when you accomplish something like defeating a big boss or discovering a secret and then another boss and beating that boss. But yeah, like stuff like it's little things like that. Like the game is built around that combat, and tracking to me is just wholly unnecessary because the creatures do large, big swiping attacks, and my job as a player is to learn, observe, and just figure out patterns and how to react. That is more than enough. I think they added tracking because the first game you can backstab in all of them, but in the first game you could basically get around the back. You know, you lock one, you get around the back, and you backstab. So tracking kind of helps resolve that a little bit because it makes it harder to get around the back and backstab. I mean, they could have done other things. They could have made the backstab cone a little narrower. They could have done other things, I think, that would have made tracking not really needed. Of course, they could have done tracking for other reasons. The lead designer is certainly a brilliant designer. So I mean, who am I to question his motives there? But for me as a player, I don't like the tracking. But still, the game is so far it's pretty fun.
You like the rest of it?
I mean, the combat is still really fun. Like the images that they're showing here, like the concept of fighting these large creatures and stuff. Like this series does this like probably the best. Some might argue that Horizons might do a good job of large creature, but you can climb on them and stuff. And of course, Monster Hunter is the series for fighting large monsters. But when you're talking about like epic sized creatures and just great visual storytelling, it's hard to beat Dark Souls series because their visual storytelling is incredible. And now this game here, I think this is the first one where there's a lot of voice and a lot of like character added with voice. And George R. Martin helped write the story for this, so it definitely shows big evolution of the series. And I can't wait to get farther in to like actually experience the open worldliness of it. But so far, I'm having fun. I spent like an hour and a half trying to beat this large dude with a sword, and I figured out his pattern. And at one point, I realized I can have him hit a wall, and his sword will cling against it, and he'll fall over and get behind him instead. I just felt so good to beat him, but when he beat me, every time it was my fault, except for like one time with tracking, which made me mad. But when I lost, it was my fault, and that's fine with me. I don't mind playing a difficult game where I know that I'm the one making the mistake.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to grab it and play with it sometime this week, maybe tomorrow or Tuesday.
Can have up to 2 people. Also, Andrew, there is another aspect of the Soul series that would probably frustrate you. I'm not sure if you're a big PvP guy, but there is the idea of invaders. So people, if you're online, people can invade your world and they can just come and kill you. So it's not like they can come and kill you and you can't fight back. Like you get a message, invaders in your world. They're a big red spirit. But there's also the co-op aspect where you can summon someone to come fight with you. And basically the games are split up in sections. So if you come co-op with me, I summon you to my world. You can't interact with like NPCs and stuff, but you can like get experience and all types of things. And until we kill the boss or I die, You are in the world with me, and then vice versa. If we finish the boss together in that section, then you need help in your boss, you would summon me over, and I'd help you kill your boss, things like that. But the big thing is, and they've like basically made this a kind of official. It's kind of always been this way, but with Elden Ring, I can summon up to 2 people who are basically called like your protectors or whatever. Because if you die, they all go. Everyone gets dismissed. So if I summon 2 people in my world, their job is to keep me alive while we move forward. So they're generally going to be the bait. They're going to run forward, pull things, all type of stuff. But also, if there can be a third person in my world that is an invader. So the other point is to have people there to help with invaders, possibly. But also they add this aspect where you can just make yourself open, and they're called hunters. And when someone gets invaded, you will just be summoned to a world to help hunt down the invader. So you're kind of a mercenary, which is an interesting aspect of the way that their co-op and their multiplayer works. I mean, I'm not a fan of PvP. I've never been a huge fan of getting invaded. I've done everything I can in the Souls games to not be invaded or deal with that type of stuff because it's just a frustrating thing to me. But I'm just not that type of player. But other people are, for sure. And people, I think that recognizing that they actually enhance to that experience a bit for those types of players. I've been invaded before, and I have won, and it's been exhilarating as hell. I have been beaten like right in front of a boss by an invader, and it was frustrating as hell. But I mean, I just got back up and kept playing because the game is that fun. Just the reward of beating something difficult in the Souls game is hard to compare to other games, unless you're talking about like old school NES games like Ninja Gaiden or something like that. The feeling of accomplishment you get from defeating a major boss in Souls is pretty great. Unless of course you cheese it, then it's just like whatever, which you can do for sure. Every game has those issues, but yeah, good stuff. I mean, I would recommend that you like new eyes after hearing me say this. You give it another try. I think that the world and environment you would absolutely appreciate. The story is interesting. All the god names and stuff, they all look like. When I was watching, I'm like, oh man, like these are like I forgot the one that's like the sleeping with the dead or whatever. The imagery of the female laying next to the corpse and her name, I can't remember off the top of my head. And then the all knowing, the guy in the coffin with the ears and the eyes and the book. Oh man, the imagery was just insane. So like, I definitely think like you seem like you would actually like really dig the larger world.
Certainly, that was the main reason I wanted to play it, was to experience that world and the graphics and understand just some of the mechanics that they employ. More than just playing the game.
Yeah. I would try it offline. That way you don't have any messages or anything.
Yeah.
And just try to run through it, and you won't get tricked by.
Yeah. That I appreciate the concept. It annoys me. That it can happen like that is annoying to me. But it reminds me of my own game, The Barbarian. One of my best friends always, whenever we talk about the game, The Barbarian, he talks about how he spent the first half hour trying to figure out how to get an axe out of a wooden stump.
Yeah.
There was a little prop that was just a wooden stump with an axe.
Oh yeah.
And he thought that he could pick up the axe. It was just a prop from an NASA store pack from K4. You couldn't pick up the axe. And apparently he spent a big chunk of time just trying to figure out how to pick up the axe. So I didn't do that on purpose, but yeah.
Oh man, that's funny.
It's good feedback, though.
Yeah,
good to know it was a mistake right away.
Yeah.
I bet you he never tried to pull out the axe out of anything else. The unfortunate thing is he might not try to interact with anything after that.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, and that's good feedback for me. That if I had gotten that earlier in the process, I would have removed that prop.
That's funny.
So I wanted to take a couple design questions if you're up for it, Salim. There were a few that were submitted in advance, one that I've already popped up, but I figured maybe we could take a few in chat as well. If anybody's got any just general game design questions. I also wanted to remind everybody who hasn't already hit the like button to hit it. And if you have hit it, I guess you can tap it
But
twice.
I'm an
or
artist, so I can't
subscribe.
answer.
Well, no, you're a game designer, so you draw.
Oh, that's right.
Games.
So I do art.
That's what game designers do. You draw games and they play them. That's about it. One of the questions that came in, though, and I don't know the answer to this, was whether or not you plot out, and it specifically calls out UML, but just UML diagrams or sequence diagrams when you're designing your systems. I guess like doesn't necessarily have to be UML, but do you like draw out diagrams and charts of how your systems work and stuff, or do you just kind of design it? Like, what's your process look like for that?
I mean, my design process depends on the feature, but yeah, I mean, visual telling of how your system works, especially when something technical, yeah, you should always do. Especially if you're writing design doc for a group of people, varying disciplines. You got to realize that artists and programmers don't necessarily speak design, and producers certainly don't speak design generally. So you have to consider the audience, visual storytelling of your system, and the design. You should always do. I mean,
I think it helps a lot. It makes it really clear, and it makes it so you don't miss steps, right? Yeah. When you're explaining it to the programmer and stuff, like all of the steps are there, and there's not like an assumed one that you miss. So
I just use Google Draw, man. All I need is Google boxes and arrows and text, ultimately, and colors. I don't use anything super fancy. I haven't had to use anything super fancy, but I just use boxes and arrows and text and circles. That's it. I don't need to use a whole lot of stuff to say this does this and here are the details of this. I generally like have a diagram and just give a legend on what the different things mean, and then have a bulleted list underneath. If it's a flow thing, then I will bullet list and the flow in order using numbered bullet points, stuff like that, so that people can reference, okay, in 2A, well, what does this mean exactly? Or so pretty simple, but you definitely should do it. Absolutely.
All right, so it's definitely a yes, just not necessarily UML. Just keep it simple and whatever works. I agree. I use like paint a lot of the time.
Yeah,
I trust them out. Like, here's a box, here's some text or some paper.
Yeah.
And then there was another question about if there was a good resource on how to balance a game with an increasing power curve. And here they're specifically talking about turn-based RPGs. But do you have like just thoughts on or general rules or places that you recommend or tips for how to deal with a power curve that's increasing? Maybe
as far as like a good resource, I couldn't really name one. You just have to find, you have to figure out exactly how you want to handle that type of balance. What is your game going for? I would just look at like an existing example. I can't actually really give any examples off the top of my head, unfortunately, but depending on how you want to increase that curve, where the increase is coming from, because if you've got things slotted in an item and they have their own curve and how they're affecting the scaling of just base player growth, and how that stuff can exponentially increase, you'd have to do research. I would ultimately just look at any release games and just see how they're handling it, and just see which one you like the best for whatever type of game that you're making, and just try to mimic that.
So you just kind of go like look at the competitors and see who's doing it best, like the best couple ones, and then look at numbers and scaling ranges, kind of like what they're using, see what you like and don't. I guess that makes sense.
I mean, ultimately, I assume that if you're making turn-based RPG, you're probably inspired by something. Like you can look at goofy games like Legend of Dragoon back in the day. Turn-based RPG, where killing normal trash basically netted you no XP. The way that you advance was killing bosses, which gave you a chunk of XP. So they helped. You could still grind on normal stuff, but you got like crap XP. But if you just went through the game normal, the boss fights retained their difficulty, because the boss fights were how you got XP. So your progression from boss to boss, if you were just running through it normally, and Legend of Dragoon's a grindy game with a whole crap ton of secrets and weird stuff, weird old school JRPG stuff. Um, so in between a boss, you could still end up doing a bunch of stuff, but at that whole point, you're not like getting a crap ton of levels. So it definitely retained. I think the level cap in it was only like 40 or something super low for a JRPG. Um, but that's how they like retained their balance. Was just like, hey, you only get XP from these things. Like, if you want to get XP at a really slow rate, go ahead. That's fine. This is like, if you progress with games, how you do it, and that kind of retains the difficulty and challenge. Um, so that's like a weird example of them like kind of a game that controlled like a power curve getting out of hand. They just basically like stopped player growth, or controlled player growth. But in that game, the core growth is the player level. In some games, player level means basically nothing. It's just a number that increases hit points and mana, and all their power is in their weapons or whatever. So you'd have to like think about um, what kind of system you're building, and and decide from there how you want your power to grow.
When I did the barbarian, I remember this was one of the things I distinctly remember working on. This was that leveling and the curve of basically like where I wanted the player to be at any given point.
Mhm.
And I remember I did it all on a pen and paper on a notebook. I had and I was in Hawaii at the time doing a month long pretend I lived there scenario where I just worked every day. It was very nice. And I sat there with a pen and paper. I knew I was mimicking, to your point, I was mimicking the leveling of Might and Magic 6, 7, 8, where it's essentially the first level you need 1,000 hit point or experience points. Next one you need 1,000 plus 2,000,
Yeah.
then whatever that plus 3,000, wherever that plus 4,000. So it's a pretty simple curve.
Yeah.
And I knew the game was very simple in regards to the damage you would do and the damage you would take. And I knew that there were, I think 13 or 14 different levels, like dungeons and maps that you could go to. And there was a general guide where, hey, this is the beginning, this is the end. And the middle ones they were a little asynchronous. You could go any order, but they were relatively the same difficulty. And I also knew that I wanted players to feel like they could go different places and actually succeed going this path or that path, skipping a whole dungeon if they wanted to. And all I did was just do the math. I kept working the math out, saying,
Mhm.
okay, I want players to have to hit the bad guy twice at the beginning, or all the enemies about twice on average. So I did the averages of where they would be at any given level, how much damage they would be taking, how much damage they would be hitting, or how many hit points they would have rather, and how much damage they would be taking. And then every one I just kept going up, like, okay, the enemies in this one should have this much hit points,
Yeah.
and should give this much damage. The next level would be this and that. And by this level, they'd be at level 5 to 6, probably. If they killed all the bad guys, they'd be at 6. If they didn't kill all the bad guys, they'd be at 4 or 5. And I just basically did that for the entire game on paper. Put it into the all the enemies' hit points and experience points and attack values were based off of that, and it worked.
Yeah.
I barely had to change anything after that. It just magically worked, and every time I played it, it was exactly what I was looking for. Where you could go, in the middle of the game, there's really 3 different dungeons that you could choose to go to if you know where they are. Each one is difficult, but by the third one, it gets pretty easy because you've leveled. So you don't have to go through them all, and it worked really well. Where you could go somewhere, realize that it's a little too strong, and without dying, so you're able to leave. But it was just worked out really well, and it was quite balanced. So I was quite happy with
that's like the base, like breaking it down to number of hits, and then just going from there. Yeah, like it takes 10 hits to do this. What is that in damage? Like also because you have to figure out what the precision point is with your damage. Do you want tens of thousands? Do you want hundreds? Do you want you don't ultimately have to start and care about that. You can start with like you did, just number of hits here and just derive it all from there. works very well because it could just be tens. They could just get up to 10 damage, and that's great. You just want something granular so people feel like you can show the growth, of course. But
that was the NES games Final Fantasy 1 and Dragon Warrior 1, where
yeah,
where Final Fantasy took the tactic of we're going thousands. By the end, you're doing
yeah,
20,000 damage. Where
yeah,
Dragon Warrior was like, you leveled up, you get 2 hit points. And it's
yeah,
like, whoa,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not a lot.
yeah,
But what my preference as a player is the Dragon Warrior side, where you're leveling up and you're getting more powerful, but it's much more granular, where one small thing could have a big impact, but it
mhm,
doesn't necessarily have to.
yeah,
Whereas the other, I guess the modern example that I talk about right now would be New World from Amazon, where it tells you what kind of level you should be at to go to a certain area. And
yeah,
if you're not at that level, you're probably going to have a tough time. But if
mhm,
you're 2 levels above that level, it's going to be super easy.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
it's so tuned to the level you're at, it almost becomes like a walkthrough. Like you're just walking through the world rather than choosing where to play. Because you can't choose to go somewhere that is overpowered. You're going to die really quickly. If
yeah,
you're really good, you might not. But it's not an easy choice to make. And then on the flip side, once you're at level 50, anything that is marked as level 46 is just a walk in the park.
yeah. Which is unfortunate. I mean, in games like EverQuest, when we're talking about MMOs, or games like Final Fantasy 11, they just let the player go wherever the hell they want. If a player could overcome a challenge, then you were a badass player. You also started with nothing. You had to figure out how to make money. Like it's an old school RPG MMO. So like they didn't stop you from doing any of that. If you overcame that challenge strategically, combat, figured out, use your powers in a certain way, not exploiting, because there was some of that. Um, then you again, to go back to the souls thing, like you actually felt wholly accomplished. You just spent, 3 hours kiting this gigantic beast of a creature who's like 10 levels above you, and you barely made it out alive, and you got basically just a chunk of XP and nothing else. But you do feel accomplished. And now you're probably going to go to lower level stuff and try to get some experience and use your 3 hours to advance in other ways. But yeah, like I mean, today things are, you go into a spot and things are scaled. People are scaled up, and then you can't scale past a thing, and everything is massaged and super clean, and everyone should play together no matter what level they are, um, which it's fine. I mean, games have proliferation is insane, so more people are playing it, more people are playing online stuff, more people are playing the equivalent of an MMO nowadays, because the definition has definitely changed. um, uh, and you have to give into your audience, or you decide to just target a very specific audience and you stick with that and you don't
Yeah.
change from that, and you be happy with what you get from doing that. Unfortunately, I just think people eventually just kind of
But
they
there's just a lot of people that are running into that same problem that Andrew did of you walk in, you get killed, and then quit playing.
yeah. But I'm saying,
Like,
if
it's
you
not
target a specific audience, like, I mean, the Soul series, they know who their audience is, and they
right.
don't care. They don't care if you stop playing because you don't like the game. It's not a game for you. That can be a true thing. It can be a game for a bunch of people and not a game for you. Both of those can be correct. Um, and they have made a crap ton of money doing that. Monster Hunter, on the other hand, is very different. Monster Hunter is a game series that started out about difficulty and challenge and overcoming these things that are way higher level than you. Well, they don't have a notion of level, but more challenging than you, hit harder than you. You don't have the right armor, things like that. The advantage, the example I said earlier about level versus gear. Monster Hunter is a very highly gearly oriented game, but you can defeat the most powerful monster with starting gear if you are good enough. But that eventually got massaged away throughout the series. They made it easier and easier, and then because they were looking to get more people to play, and then you have Monster Hunter World, which is still a fantastic game, but it is stupidly simple to kill these large menacing creatures. They're not even intimidating anymore. Whereas in older Monster Hunters, when you heard the roar of Deviljho or something, you legitimately like stopped because you were afraid that this guy just is about to wreck your fight because you're already fighting something. Um, but that's an example of kind of a hard game that whose identity has changed a bit. Which again, it's fine because the gameplay is still phenomenally fun, and the game has evolved a whole bunch. But and I'm glad to see like it's become mainstream because I wanted more people to play Monster Hunter. But it's kind of a bittersweet thing because more people play Monster Hunter now. Monster Hunter is a lot easier, and I am less of a fan of the modern day Monster Hunters. They just don't stick with me because there's just like the challenge just isn't there. It's just I just walk in and kind of roll my face on the keyboard or across the controller and shit dies.
Too easy now.
But yeah, it's sad. Like Jason Wyman could do good in Monster Hunter.
It's actually pretty easy. I'm pretty sure my wife could play it on the Switch and be okay with it. Yeah, it's definitely not too difficult. It's relatively chill. You should check it out, Andrew. I'm closer to your skill level too, so it's probably a good one. There was a question here. I wanted to. Can you guys got more on that, or can we jump to this other one that I wanted to ask you both?
Go ahead.
Because and it's a simple question, but the question is just about a design doc template. Because I know Andrew was just talking about the Barbarian. I don't know if you used a design doc template for that, and Salim's done 300 different games and design docs. So I don't know. Do you guys have like templates that you recommend or share, or anything that we can point people to, or?
I depends on where I'm working. Like when I was working at H1Z1, they had a template they like to use, and you just kind of fill it in. I changed it a little bit, and then when we were working on the VR stuff, and I wrote the design doc for the Ghost game, which I forgot we ended up naming it. Ghost. Oh god, a name that made me angry. That design doc is using that same template. I just modified a little bit more. But since then, like it just depends on where I work. I look at examples. I try to establish the template if one doesn't exist, because it's much easier to read if you understand. And it's much easier to write if you understand what sections need to exist.
Do you find companies usually have their own like design doc template that most people are sticking with, or does it vary?
I think that it varies by team within a company. EQ1 and EQ2, I think their design docs were written very differently, which I guess is understandable because they have different systems that they have to call out when they're like designing a zone or a dungeon and things like that. Although theoretically, you can generalize the template enough with examples that people can this section is for like specific systems for this dungeon, period. And then people can detail those things out. So I have a variety of design docs that I've written. I tend to follow a fairly specific format. There's always a general summary at the top. There's always a word section that basically gives definition of words you might see in the doc that you may not recognize. Not everyone knows what RPG means. Not everyone knows what your MacGuffin is. So giving a definition of those things at the top is really good. Target audience, targeted level, things like that. Like a bunch of general information I tend to put at the top. And then I just try to start with like a large summary, user story potentially, to prepare people for what they're about to read. And then I go into each section. If it's a large enough document, I think the document that I wrote for when we redid Pantheon, I think that was like a 40 page design doc. That document was hyper detailed. Like I was like super into, I don't know what I was on when I wrote that, but that document had like story. It was like a full game design. It wasn't like a system design doc. It was effectively an expansion design doc. but it had the full story in it. It had all the sections I just mentioned. It had lower level details about the level increase and specific curve information. Um, so it just depends on what it is. But I think you can generally drill down sections. You want to start at a high level, get people in, get them prepared for the information they're about to consume, and then start writing out your sections. And when you write out the sections, which I preach this a bunch, you have to consider the audience. We talk about the visual diagramming, which is a good way to get people to understand something, but that doesn't always work. You have to write for basically three people. You have to write for yourself, the designer. You have to write for other disciplines, artists and programmers who will be working with you, and you have to write for producers. So that can turn into a section about how someone's going to slot this gem into a sword, being basically three different um, explanations. One explanation can be producery. It can be a user story. It can be like, here's how players are going to interact with this thing from a gameplay standpoint. And another one can be designery. Like, here is the basic design of this. Here's the general flow. And then the other stuff is, um, more for software, more for art, like the very specific lower level details of how they engage with this and what is needed. And that's just one thing. I think that game that we're working on with Chris that he was trying to get pitched, I wrote. I think I wrote all of the like sci-fi, like crafting system concepts and all of the stealth system stuff, and every one of those was 4 paragraphs written basically for every audience. I think the additional audience there was investors. So I had to write this user story plus like a general gameplay thing, plus why it's good for money, plus like here's how your designer thinks about it and how the design is, and here is how I see it being implemented, just from a coding standpoint, not being a coder, but just generally like here is how these things would work under the hood, hopefully, and just general, and then throwing in some general concept artwork in there and stuff like that, and examples of existing games for the visual side of it for art. So it like generally a design doc is just going to be a bunch of general sections, but it's just what's in them that's more important than like the general guideline, as long as it makes sense, right? Like don't introduce this low level thing that's key to this other bigger system. Don't introduce that like and start talking about the bigger system when you haven't like introduced that in the flow of the document. Talk about the bigger system, let it introduce that lower level thing. It's kind of common sense stuff. It's just like reading a story,
ordering it in a way that
yeah,
it makes sense. So you don't have to know the stuff in the back to have the beginning parts make sense, which can be hard if you already know it all and you just write about it without thinking that they don't know all these things and you just jump right into it.
I can tell you though, the definition section at the top of the document is hyper useful. Color code that thing. Put in the words, give them definitions, and then every word that word is mentioned in the document, make it the same color. It is super useful for people to reference that stuff, especially if it's a long doc and people might be only going to certain sections. Being able to read what that thing means is pretty useful.
What about you, Andrew? What did you use for Barbarian? Oh, you're silent.
I'm the exact opposite, and silence works for this because I did nothing. I didn't know what a design document was. I know what it is now, but I have no references to go off of. I could probably find some on the internet, but I did nothing. All I knew is that I wanted to make. Well, I wanted to make the game that I'm working on very, very, very slowly now. But I realized that was above my pay grade at the time. Yeah. So I made another game that was just slightly above my pay grade at the time. And all I did was try things out. I knew a general idea of what I wanted it to be. And I just kind of kept trying things out and adding things and taking things away. I rewrote, most of the main scripts I rewrote 3, 4, 5 times, partly because at the beginning I didn't really use methods properly and everything was in the update loop. by the end, that wasn't completely the case, although it was probably still the case.
Hey, it worked though, right?
It worked, and I
Yeah.
mean it worked, and that's the crazy thing is I remember I had my enemies working. They were fighting. They would go through random attack patterns. They had enough randomization where you didn't quite know what they were going to do. Were they going to run away? Were they going to dodge? There was where it felt real. It felt good. And then I tried to put more than 4 on the screen, and the frame rate went down. And I was like, "Oh, what the heck?" And that's when I learned that you shouldn't put everything in the update loop. And as soon as I just basically took all of that out and just made methods as appropriate, I went from being able to have 4 things on the screen to being able to have 100 enemies on the screen, and it was
Nice.
fine. And I was like, "Oh,
Nice.
well, look at that! That's pretty. That was a fun moment." But that's all I did. There was no investors. It was just me and my savings
Yeah.
account that dwindled more every year, and I just did what felt fun. Obviously, I did so many things wrong. The barbarian is a case study in what not to do. It did get published, and it still makes like I don't know, $5 a week, $7 a week or something. It buys me some coffee,
It's
pays
better
for
than
my
nothing.
Apple annual subscription to their developer thing. Although more and more weeks have $0 now, so I think it might be time to pull it, but that's okay. But yeah, it's a case study in what not to do, and all over the place. But it was nonetheless fun, and it got me where I am today. So was
I
worth
wouldn't
it.
say it's a case study on what not to do. I mean, going through that experience helped you learn. So,
Yeah, what I mean is I know next time I'm going to do things differently.
you mean
You know,
personally?
in
Yeah,
regards
Learned a
to
lot,
I
right?
learned a lot. Yeah,
yeah,
across the board, from not designing in a vacuum,
yeah,
letting people beta test, gain feedback early. I think sticking to your guns about what you want the game to be is important
yeah,
because that's tremendously important. You make the decision.
yeah,
I want it to feel like this, and it should feel like that. And
yes,
to your point earlier about Dark Souls, if people don't like that, it's not for them. It's
yeah,
not a game for them. That's fine because there's always going to be people who do like that game. And if you're not making it to make $1 million and to return on the investors, then you have that freedom of saying, well, this is the game I want to make. This is what I want it
yeah,
to feel like. So long as you're actually getting to that point, then you're okay. But
yeah,
building it publicly where people can see it being built, can follow you on whatever systems you're using to
yeah,
let people follow you. Um, those things are important. I understand so that when you launch it, people actually buy it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, ultimately, that's why there's genres of games. Not everyone likes, Tractor Simulator, but there's an audience for it.
Yep.
I don't like Tractor Simulator. I'm not going to buy it. If someone asks me to try it, I might try it, and maybe I'll ask for money back. I might not because I'll support the developer. I tried something, it's fine, but same thing with Souls. Like their audience is this audience. If you don't like it, then don't play it. Pick another game. There's a shit ton of games out there. A
Yeah.
crap load. Trust me.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
know. My
what's the
wallet
number?
hurts.
Thousands released every day on Steam, or hundreds released
Oh
every day on
God,
Steam.
so many
Yeah.
games, man. Can we
Yeah.
go back in time? Can we space these out a little bit so I can actually like finish some games? God, man, so
The
many games.
last week I was at this Airbnb with some friends and doing work from there and all that, and they had one of those consoles that is just a computer. It had the 4 player button
Yeah,
consoles
yeah,
from the arcade, and it
yeah,
had thousands of games on it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
And
a good emulator.
I
Yeah,
loaded up one game that looked cool. Sort it was like a dragon game, but sort of like 1942, those old top down
yeah.
flying around the screen bullet hell games, and that and a couple other games, and I was like, man,
Is it
games are
like
so much
Panzer
better
Dragoon
now.
or something?
Something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I was like, games are better now. And I realized that, you know, there were fewer games before, which probably made all of them seem better than they really were.
Yes.
maybe. I mean,
Maybe.
people are into retro games now. People tend to make though. I mean, they're easier to make now, of course, because of the graphic quality and stuff. But there is definitely, I think, in a lot of cases, nostalgia still rings true with those games. Part of it is just challenge, because modern day games tend to be a lot easier. Um,
Hmm.
But you know, I mean, you go back and play a game like Ikaruga, which has 6 levels. It's a bullet hell game where you swap basically between white and black to dodge bullets of the same color or to absorb bullets of the same color, and it gets nuts. Um, 6 levels. I, I mean, there aren't many people who can say they've gotten through 6 levels of Ikaruga. It's certainly not on hard difficulties, and that game stands up. It's just a fun bullet hell game. You can't really refine that. That's like particular experience much, right? What do you do? Throw more bullets at me or add a third color? Like I don't know. So in that sense, I think those games actually stand up nostalgia wise. Um, even games like old, like Zelda 2, I think stands up still as a great experience. It's super hard, um, but it was hard because of the game style and the gameplay. Um, so I think that type of stuff still stands up, and definitely like the nostalgia is there for it being a great game. But yeah, to your point, there are definitely some game. I mentioned Ninja Gaiden earlier. Ninja
Yeah.
Gaiden has like a lot of like memories for me. Sharing one controller between 8 people trying to get past a particular level in like easily one of the hardest games ever. And to refine that, they made modern day Ninja Gaiden even harder, and it's all in 3D and more complicated to play. Uh, it's still as hard. So I mean, I don't want to play the old Ninja Gaiden. I just play the modern one because it looks better, and it is also very difficult, which is what I'm playing it for. So yeah, sometimes it rings true, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recognized that the second I started playing NBA Jam after I set up the cabinet. I was like, this was a lot better when I was like 14 and had to walk 2 hours to play it, like up to the arcade. Had to
Yeah,
go through a lot of effort, and it really mattered if I lost
yeah,
because I
because you're
only had
pumping
$1.
quarters into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Now
I,
it's just like, oh yeah, this is pretty lame.
I think the last basketball game that was like that was a NBA Street, which is like old. I think it's like Xbox. I want to say 360 era. 360 just the last. Oh no, the 360 is 2 years ago. And that one was great. Like it was super fun. And playing it, you got right into it. It had an NBA Jam like feel. Just kind of ridiculous basketball, side scrolling basketball game.
Yeah.
But that's like the last one. I don't know why they stopped making them. They're just like, there's no market for this. No one wants to
Yeah,
play
I think
this.
they just make it now as modes in other games that they can
Yeah,
just upsell as a
yeah.
microtransaction.
So,
Makes more money and sense that way. I wanted to answer this real quick question on here that was in chat about how you increase the difficulty of a boss in relation to the number of players, because I think there are a couple of options. I'll give a couple of quick examples, and then you guys can dive into some more like detailed ones. But some of the simplest things you can do is just have like minimum and maximum values for the power of the boss, like the minimum and maximum health,
yeah,
and then have that just interpolate or go up along a curve based on a set range of players. So at one player, it's at the minimum health. At
yeah,
10 or whatever the max number of players that you allow is, it's at the maximum health, and then
yeah,
you just scale kind of linearly or on some sort of a curve. And in Unity, you could use like curve.evaluate to figure out where on that curve if you don't want it to be a straight line.
yeah,
You'd also like unlock things as player counts go up. So like maybe at one player it doesn't do any of these abilities, but then it's got a list of abilities and a number of players that are active or have to be engaging it before it unlocks those abilities or powers or effects or whatever. Those are some of the easiest ways to do it. You guys have some other suggestions on just ways to increase difficulty of bosses in
well,
I would
relation to number of players?
I would start just by multiplying hit points and seeing in development time, seeing if that feels right. As the just going back to what I was saying earlier is my math system was just how many hits do I want it to take on average for the player to defeat this bad guy. So if it's 50 hits, for a boss or something, then now it should take 200 hits from 4 different people. But then you could, if it feels like that's too much or feels like it's too little, you could then modify that, the math, the multiplier essentially, based on whether if you've got 3 characters now that they're working together, they can be more powerful or something like that. And I like the idea though about having new attacks that only show up when there's more players. That's a neat concept.
I mean, ultimately, it definitely comes down to uh, the game, because when you consider, you can very easily, like you said, scale it up based on number of players. But the problem is that each individual player isn't the same value. The uptime that a player has on a boss is very different depending on their class. If they're a healer, they basically have zero uptime on the target, so they aren't the same value as the rogue that is in their party. Um, so you have to you definitely want to spend some time trying to just like guesstimate what the average party. You have to have a baseline for what type of party should be fighting this generally. If there's
What
roll
if it's like a single player game and you're allowing multi? I mean, you can keep answering this one, but I was wondering,
yeah.
like single player game and you allow co-op and your buddy can hop in and join in with you, and you're basically like the same.
Again, it's still, if you're the same class, if there's no like tons of classes, you're just shooting shit. Then that's easy because your uptime for both of you is basically 100%.
Yeah.
So, but ultimately, yeah, I mean, you can just say, extra player increases hit points and damage. That is the easiest and probably cleanest way to do it. Unlocking abilities, the only thing that I don't like about unlocking abilities, if it's is that I think the ability should always be there to learn a boss. If he does some big swiping attack, and you learn that pattern, that should just be there. If I bring a friend in and now he's doing this other crazy attack, that actually makes me not want to play with my friend because this other attack might be nuts. The other attack he can still do. He just may not do it as frequently when I'm by myself, but I've seen it before. And it makes sense for him to do it more often when there's two of us because maybe it's an attack that like splits directions or something like that. Um, he throws out two different blades that track versus when when it's just me, he just throws out the one blade. So a modification to an attack he already has might be good. I also like I also like uh, keeping the ability unlocking linked to the type of that same character. So if I have like a big boss that is like a frog or whatever, I don't know why I use that example. Um, and he just has like a list of like 3 or 4 attacks he does, and he's green. When I fight that boss again and he's orange, he now unlocks an ability because he's orange, and he's more powerful. So as a player, I can say, okay, cool. Like the orange frogs do this other extra ability, and the green frogs don't. So I just kind of learned that language. Versus, oh shit, is my friend with me or not? Is he gonna do this ability or not? If you're like watching patterns and stuff, this extra thing you might have to look out for. It could be less fun. I mean, it's still viable. It's just like me personally, I probably wouldn't do that. I definitely think you can modify an attack for sure. Here's a pattern you've learned. Now here's how the pattern works when there's two people. Same tell, same type of attack. It's just when the attack executes, some things are subtly different because there's an extra target involved.
I think this comes down really again to just the what game you're trying to make.
Yeah.
Some of the chat comments are talking about like James talking about you prep for the boss and you should be rewarded by prepping correctly and so it's easier now. And I agree with that. I understand the opposite side. With something like Skyrim, which is I know as I was playing is like, hey, wait, these characters, these enemies aren't getting easier, they're getting stronger as I get stronger. So what's the point of me getting stronger? And that didn't sit well with me, feeling, coming from a standpoint of thinking, oh, I've got this new weapon and now I'm going to blast through these early level characters. It didn't happen. And that was frustrating for me. But I think, so for the way I would approach it is I want it to be difficult, but I don't want it to be like, oh, there's 4 of you, so now it's 4 times as hard. It should be just the same. And that way, especially if I have a party-based game where it's a single-player game, but you're working with different characters, you're setting up your own D&D party type of thing, then I can say, okay, well, I'm going to have two tanks and 1 healer and 1 spellcaster, or I'm going to go with 4 spellcasters and try to, do it differently. And that can still be viable. I just have to change some tactics. And for me, that's what excites me about the concepts. And that's why I would avoid doing those things. But it comes down to what game do you want to make, I suppose.
So James' example is not completely on the point of this. The James example, he's right. In a game where there is a raid boss, the raid boss is made for a bunch of people to fight it. It's not a solo fight. It's meant for you to bring a bunch of people and prepare and fight them. That thing shouldn't scale up, because if you bring the number of people it's balanced for, you probably can't bring more if it's a raid. And that is it. If you can bring more, then it's probably not going to scale up, and it was meant to be easier when you bring more people. But the concept of preparing for like a big raid boss, the part of that preparation is getting the amount of people that raid boss is balanced for and fighting them. So it isn't necessarily that it becomes easier. It is that it becomes zero sum, because you are fighting it at the balance point that it's supposed to be. And then the individual players being better gear wise is what makes it easier in that sense. But if you're talking about a game where you play solo, but you can bring other people in, and you want to keep the challenge level when other people come in for that individual thing, then it makes sense to scale the boss up, because it's basically a single player game where you are experiencing that together with someone else. Like, you want the challenge level to still be there. You don't want to just bring someone else in and then it just becomes easy, because this just kind of weird. Like, that's not the type of experience I assume that you would play the game for. So James' example is different, and he is right. A raid boss or a big boss that is meant for a bunch of people, he doesn't scale down to one person. He is only at the scale that is for the number of people he's targeting for, which effectively results in the single person versus the single boss, because it's this number of people equals one boss. So in that sense, yeah, you're going to retain that challenge. It's not going to get easier unless the individual gets tougher, and the boss isn't going to scale up at that point. Especially
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that scaling either. And I think most of the time it happens like in the opposite direction. They build it for hard, and then they do scaled down versions so that
yeah.
you can, like, oh, this is too hard for 20 people, so we're gonna make a 5-person version. And
Yeah,
uh,
I am also.
I just find it boring. I don't know, but I'm also old, and like I liked raids
Well,
where I had 100 plus people, and I had fun with those. So
on
I'm probably the outlier and
well
strange.
on EQ2, we had a point when because they were telling a lot of the story for an expansion at the end of it in the bigger raids, and while I am totally fine with that, it's just a aspirational point for a player in a game where we want community, we want people to get together and meet each other and work together. It's an aspirational point that if you want to experience the prologue of this story, or even the finale, you should find other players, get with them, and be a part of a raid and get that story. You don't have to do it hardcore. Just get in there and experience it if you're really interested in it, and that should compel you to get to that point. Um, but I think it just turned into a big worry, and started talking about doing things that were like, oh, how can we just give people the story without doing this? I mean, it turned into some cool ideas. Like, we were going to do stuff like make it so people can effectively experience the raid as a watcher. Like, you're running through a different part of the level and you're seeing a simulated part of the raid happen, so you get to still see the story and experience the raid, as fake as that may be, as a part of like a solo mission or something like that. um, which I thought was kind of a cool concept. It's just like a bunch of work that where we already have a solution that is fine, and you're probably building this for a very small chunk of people.
Yeah, it seems like a thing that a tiny percent of your players end up
Yeah.
using again,
Um,
like a lot of systems.
but the thing that compelled me is that it actually gave an avenue for a new type of gameplay within the game, like a stealth dungeon. I wanted to do like a stealth crafting dungeon where you just had like gadgets and stuff as a crafter, and you could go through and like activate gadgets and things like that and go up this tower, and then you get to experience basically like adventuring story. If you're not interested in being an adventurer in a game that is primarily adventuring, but you would get this kind of Metal Gear style experience that just hadn't been in the game before. um, So for me, it was compelling because conceptually, it's like, hey, we can introduce this whole new just way that you go about and consume our content. And if we can figure out a way to just make this easily repeatable, this just becomes a thing that we do. Um, and then we can just expand from there. But ultimately, yeah, it's targeting a small chunk of people in the grand scheme of it.
Yeah. So there is a question here. I think it says for Andrew, but I think it's really for both of you about killing or pulling games down. So it says that Andrew mentioned pulling a game. You're talking about the Barbarian, and maybe it was time to pull that off of the Apple Store.
Apple
The
Store,
one, and the question was, if a game is not performing well or not selling, should you pull it off the store or off a store? And if so, when? What's your thought? If you got a game, you put it out and it's not really doing very much.
Repercussions. Think of the impact. For the Barbarian, it's my only game right now out there. It's been there for years, 6 years, 7 years almost, and it doesn't make much money. But there's no negative to having it there. I can still show it to people. I'm pretty sure I, get jobs because I have it up there. Because people don't need to play it to see that he has a game live. That's something. And it is something. It's not going to poo-poo that on myself for sure. But it's gotten to the point where I might start losing money. I haven't done the math on it. I don't pay attention to how much it makes. I know I get a little update from Apple every week saying what I made. And until a year ago, it always was above zero. It might have been $3, might be $10, might be on a good week $18. Recently, more and more weeks are zero. A couple weeks ago it was $12, and Apple costs I think $100 a year to be in their developer program. I don't need that anymore. So the only reason I need to be in the developer program is to keep the game on the store. If I don't have the game on the store, I can stop paying them $100 a year until I need it again, which might be a year or two. Who knows? I'm going to use a different, for my next game, it's going to be under Magic Pig Games, not SFA Studios. So I'm making a change there too. So at some point I need to pull it, or I want to pull it, just because it's going to make things easier on my life. But for now, I've been happy with, gain every once in a while. Apple puts $50 in my bank account, and I think that's cool. And I accept it. I don't pay attention to it at all. And around tax time, I always have to be like, oh, I made $200 last year. That's cool.
Yeah, but, you made it, right? So
I made it, and it's there, and there you go. But it's gotten to the point now where, in the next 12 months, it might be $100 or less, in which case I'd be losing money. And it doesn't take any work on my part. There's no work. And so that's great. But if there was any amount of work, I would have pulled it already, because it's not worth the effort.
If you're having go in and update it or patch it. And
Unfortunately, I can't update it. That's part of the problem. I can't update it. It was made in Unity 4.6 or whatever. It was made in Unity script. When Unity 5 came out, I installed it into Unity 5, and there were 150,000 errors. And I have the code technically on my computer still, so I could try, but I would rather just remake it from scratch than try to fix it. So at this point, it is what it is. One of the biggest mistakes I made at the time was I couldn't figure out how to get it on Steam for whatever reason, or Android. I didn't have an Android device, and so I put it out on the iOS, and then it wasn't making money, and so I was like, and then Unity 5 came out and all that, and so suddenly I was like, whatever. Probably should have figured those things out, but maybe I would have made a little bit more money. But
get them in this next one.
Yeah, that's the idea. I'm gonna fix my the way I'm doing it, so that
yeah.
Nice. Salim, you got any thoughts on these? When to pull a game?
Actually, just was a part of a major one of these recently, and I am glad that it happened when it happened. I mean, ultimately, it's just, if it's a big game and it's part of a studio, you should pull it. You should recognize that fairly soon, because you're talking about people's paychecks and stuff involved in all this type of stuff. the health of the business. But what determines unperformant? Like, I mean, what was it? I think Guardians of the Galaxy's like made a crap ton of money and sold really well, and Square said it still didn't meet expectations or some crazy stuff like that. So what is not performing? What does that mean?
My guess is in this case they're thinking more like Andrew's scenario, where it's just not selling much at all, maybe a couple dollars a month. I'm guessing that nobody watching here is thinking like, my game only made 100,000 last month. Should I kill it? Like, they've got someone else, but like the people that are like, their game is really just not bringing in, and maybe it made like 3 sales last year. Would you bring it down or would you leave it up?
I mean, is the game crappy? Is it giving me a bad rep? Is it getting me some exposure? To Andrew's point, if he had it on Steam and Android, he'd be potentially making triple the small amounts that he's getting, and he's also getting more exposure on more platforms for something that's just sitting there that he made that he doesn't have to touch. So I think in that sense, you just leave it up there until it just is taking money from you. And even then, you have to debate like, is the $100 loss a year worth the exposure I've been getting? I'm getting offers here and there, and people talking to me, and they always reference these things here. So I'm investing $100 into contacts. So I mean, it basically becomes a resume if you're going to get a job somewhere. I don't know. I think it's hard. I think it's totally case by case. Depends on the individual situation. When you pull it, I don't think there's like a simple answer that any one of us could give.
Yeah. Well, I tend to agree with both of you. I think Andrew's point of just like, if it's not costing you much and it's not taking your time, then you may as well. And there's no, like Salim said, there's no downside. It's not screwing up your reputation because it's terribly bad or just looks horrible or something. I leave it up. You never know. It could just one day some random PewDiePie decides to stream it and it becomes a hit and make a bunch of money, or something else, or it just it gets used as a piece in your resume or as a portfolio piece. By the way, I did open up the giveaway. You can see it kind of running in that window right over there. If you want to enter to win a copy of JetBrains Rider, it's like a 1-year license that they provide for free. Thanks again, JetBrains. It's freaking awesome. It's my favorite code editor. If you want to win a copy of it, you can enter just by choosing a race and a class there. And then we'll kick off the battle, and then the battle just kind of auto fights. There are some differences between the different races and classes, but I don't remember what they are. So unless you've been watching regularly, it's kind of just random. Just pick the one that seems the most interesting to you. We'll hit the button and see if you win. There's a stream actually where I went through and created some of these. So if you want to see the exact stats on them, I think you could probably go back and watch
my new arena. Why didn't you use my arena?
I don't think your new arena is ever checked in.
I checked it in.
I
cleared out all the central stuff and cleaned up those stairs so it's way bigger.
I don't know.
I see what this is.
I don't know. I must not have gotten it, or there was something in there. I don't even remember. It's been too long. Yeah. So you got 37 people signed up so far. I think once we get to like 50 or so, maybe 60, I'll kick it off. If you want to enter, all you have to do is type in chat. Just pick a class and or a race.
Oh, Jason's here.
Oh yeah, I see it. Jason's story is an assassin werewolf coming in to assassinate everybody. Sneak in from behind. You just pick one of these. You'll get color coded. You'll get lined up, and then you'll run in and battle as soon as I hit this little start button down there. And then the last one standing will win the license.
What does he need JetBrains for? Didn't he make it?
Didn't he make it? I think he has a rider license already. He'll get beat. He picked a what did he choose? Where's Jason? I missed him. Some sort of assassin. A werewolf assassin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Maybe a win. I don't know. Werewolves had, what did they have? Like a life link? I think they had a life tap. Something like that. I can't remember anymore. They've all got different stuff. Eventually, I'd like to give them all abilities so that like they can all cast spells and do different stuff. But it's such a low priority thing because it's just like my random, I'm bored and I want to code something that it has no consequences project.
Yeah, I wish that I could have a downtime where I was bored.
Oh, yeah. Well, It gets difficult when you love your job too much, or when you have kids. Both of those things can make it tough. All right, so what are we at? 62 people already. Oh, let's take a couple more questions first. While people join up, I'll give people a couple more minutes to join. So, what about giving an old game a facelift or DLC when working on building a game fan community to help revive it? So, if you guys ever, yeah, I guess the question is, what do you guys think about just updating old games with DLCs or like revamping or reworking old games?
I think it's cool. What is this? I mean, it's cool. Or is he saying do this as a way to learn? Or
I think as on the topic of killing the old games, right? So like, say the game's
oh,
like
okay,
it's dying off, it's not selling anymore. What about like adding a DLC or doing an update to it to like revamp it? Do you think that's worth it, or would you just move on to making a new game? Or what do you guys think about that? Like, you got a game that was out, maybe it did okay, but then started kind of dying off, and
uh,
you're considering killing it. Would you
I mean,
consider doing an update instead, or?
Yeah,
depends on the game.
It depends on the game. Depends on the community. It comes down to, I mean, so if you're working at a large studio, then it comes down to revenue. Are you going to make more money? Do you think you're going to make more money by doing that with the resources you have? It comes down to me as just a dude who works out of Starbucks and libraries. Then it comes down to, is this something I want to do? Do I love this game so much that I want to see it continue to grow or just to continue to be relevant? And if that's the case, then maybe it's worth my time. But it also comes down to money, whether I think it's going to be worth my while. I know with the Barbarian not making much, I doubled down on Infinity PBR because clearly I still needed money, and so I spent more focus on saying, okay, well, originally I was making models and stuff for the Barbarian, and after that I just started making models and stuff for whatever games people wanted to make with them. So there's that, and eventually I had to get a job. So I think it comes down to money as well, but in a different way. It always revolves around whether you're able to pay your bills,
Yeah.
from a corporation standpoint or from your landlord's standpoint.
There's that darn having to like have a place to live and eat. I mean, but to your point, your Barbarian is so old. Like the process of diving into that and redoing it, you A, have to have the time, and B, you have to have like people who would want it. You probably have the desire because just it's like a pet project, right?
Yeah.
But like you have to like now carve out time to do that. And it's just like, when I do this, are people going to love it? Am I still going to be $50 a month or a year to put all this work into it? Yeah, I mean, definitely depends on the situation. I would say always go for it if you can, because if you love something that much that you created it, then you should invest in it more if you can. But that's not always going to be true.
I always fantasize about making the Barbarian 2 one day. Nice. And people will be like, the 2? What do you mean? Where's number 1? I'll be like, oh, that was 10 years ago. You don't want to see it.
It'd be like the civilized man instead.
Yeah.
Version 2. All right, I'm going to kick off our giveaway and see who wins, or at least let people start battling, and we'll figure out who wins as we go through maybe a couple more questions and discussions. First, I just want to watch the first round real quick, because it looks like we got 2 paladins, 2 orange things, warriors. I just want to get an idea of what's out here fighting. A couple berserkers and some necros.
Where are those animated health bars?
Jason's story started putting them in, and he didn't finish them, so I need to find the button that kills him, that cuts his health in half.
Interesting.
He put in like a good example. I think they just need to be integrated.
I don't think that's the story he's going to tell.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, I want to see what, I was curious what classes would get picked. Necromancers I thought were really good, so I was surprised they're at the bottom. But Paladins apparently very, very popular.
I wonder why you like Necromancers so much.
Because they have
a monk? Is there a monk?
No, but we can add one.
Yeah.
We'll add a monk next. There should be a monk. That's a good point. And they should just one shot kill you.
They should just
or
kick.
just speed attack, like 10 attacks a second.
They should kick really good. That's what they should do.
That's what they should do. They should just spin around and keep kicking like Chun-Li.
Bam.
Yeah, just upside down. I'm gonna get the animation in there for monks. Have the little rat over there doing some kicks. Be cool stuff. I had a lot of fun just working on this thing, though. If anybody's interested in seeing how it works, just subscribe and join the streams every now and then. Randomly stream and blab about it.
Jason. Or more of a statement from Jason. Yeah.
Oh, Jason said, I'm a contractor. I make systems and add them to the project. Integration is a different department. I even gave you a demo of how it works. Not wrong. It's definitely
I'm just waiting to see them work. I mean, it's hard to watch this without those animated health bars. That's all I'm saying.
That does make it tough, huh?
I think that if you truly loved all of your fans here, that they would exist.
They would get animated health bars, yeah.
Yeah.
If Jason really cared. Oh, that's great stuff. So let's see. Let's see what other questions we've got here. While poor Meow got eliminated in the first round. Yeah, let's see what other questions we've got though, if any. While the battle goes on, or were there other things you guys just wanted to discuss and talk about? I mean, letting chat kind of guide us, but if you guys have some other things you're interested in talking about this week.
Man, nothing really game related. Like I said, Elden Ring, and has anyone played Forbidden West? Wondering if anyone's.
I have not. But I haven't played Elden Ring yet either. I plan on trying to join you this week. I did get to play a little bit of the new Magic set.
Have you checked out the new Yu-Gi-Oh digital game? It's apparently really good. It's apparently like really, really good.
Interesting.
It's I mean, I guess like Magic level good. And I love Yu-Gi-Oh just because I love trap cards as a concept. But apparently it's supposed to be about that same level of quality, and it's free.
I have to try it out because I love playing the Magic one, so it'd be interesting to try something else similar and see what it's like.
Yeah.
And there was a question in chat about if we discussed the mastermind stuff already, and we did. We had a chat about that a little bit at the beginning. I think that was right before Salim joined in. Salim, did you hear all that stuff? I can't remember.
No,
okay, so just. I'll give a real quick recap. The mastermind groups, I'm going to start getting everybody matched up tomorrow. If you want to find out more about it, just go to game.courses/mm. They're just free open groups. I'm going to set everybody up in groups of 4 to 6 people. You meet weekly with other game developers, talk about the game development stuff you're doing, the problems you're having, the successes and other stuff for an hour. Just totally open and should be a pretty relaxed environment that's just meant to help everybody be more productive, get past problems, and just have a regular place to go, like with people that understand your projects and that, I mean, you do it for a year and you've met for 52 times, like you're going to have a really good idea of what everybody's doing and be able to give really good feedback. So that's the plan. If you want to go sign up, it's game.courses/mm. And there's a form down at the bottom. You sign up, put in your info. I'll be matching people based on availability, skill set, and kind of goals as best as possible. But we got about 500 people signed up so far. So if you want to sign up, just do it now, because I'm going to try to automate and go through as much of this as possible this week. Get everybody in for either next week or the week after that.
Is it something that I'm involved in?
You are welcome to sign up.
Oh, okay.
It's something I decided to do a week or two ago. Somebody had asked about it, and it kind of scaled up to be a little bit bigger than I'd expected. I thought maybe there would be 20 or 40 people, but there were 500. So I gotta automate it a little bit to try to get it down so I can get everybody into groups and stuff. But I got some plans to make it work. I think it'll be good. James asked if he can buy buffs for his rider battle character. I I'd probably be against some terms of
Telling you.
services, my guess, on
Telling
YouTube.
Salty bets. Get it going. Get it going. It's fun.
Yeah. Worm Wizard for the win. So who's winning right now? What have we got in the lead? A lot of paladins have dropped. So we had 20 paladins and 6 berserkers. Now we have 12 and 5. I wonder if the berserkers just haven't fought yet, though. Necros are going down. Assassins are still good. Interesting. Watching it, seeing what wins.
But yeah, not a lot of people have PS5, so I don't think a lot of people played Forbidden West, but someone here has. Nicholas, I think, said he played it. Looks pretty fun, especially if you played Horizons 1, which is a phenomenal game. But there was an article, Aloy was on the cover, I think, of Vanity Fair. And I think there were some people like giving them crap about like her dimensions and stuff. And like she's, as a female character, she's like, she looks very real. Like they don't exaggerate anything. They respect the female form and the type of character she is. But I guess people were like giving them grief about not knowing what a woman looks like or something. It's just like, what? You guys just
Hey, you're always gonna find people to complain about anything.
Can we just like leave stuff alone? God, just play the game and have fun. I don't get it. Why do you have to nitpick?
You never make everyone happy. So Aaron asked if there's going to be a game dev con. That reminds me, GDC is coming up next month.
Right.
Game Developer Conference in San Francisco. I think I might be there doing something. So talk about that a little bit later, or I'll talk about that later. Also, I'm doing a online game development conference in May. If you're interested in speaking about in that or at that, I'll be finalizing speakers this week as well, along with mastermind groups. It's going to be a busy week. Just go to game.courses/speak or speakers, and you can sign up for that if you want to submit a talk. I believe Andrew was going to give a really good talk there, right?
Oh, nice.
It's going to be a really good talk.
I haven't the best.
Will it be about the Barbarian 2? Are you announcing the Barbarian 2?
It will probably be Barbarian 3. I'm going to skip 2 and go straight to 3. That's how good it's going to be.
So like 2 was so good you guys couldn't even conceive it. It's just like we're past 2 already.
It's only released in Antarctica.
Yeah. I'm going to be at GDC. I'm excited about that. I haven't been to GDC in years because of the pandemic.
Oh, man. I have never been to a GDC.
I always enjoyed the Unite conferences more than the GDC conferences. They're the only 2 I've been to, but I like those
I've been
more.
to plenty of E3s. That's about it.
Unite conferences are a lot of fun. They were always really good.
Yeah.
Very, very focused on Unity stuff, which made it perfect for me. Like there was always something that I could use like at those talks. Almost every talk come away with something cool. Like I learned something new that I realized I should have been using, and I meet a lot of people there. It was really nice.
The networking was always on point, I think, and with GDC, there's so many people that have nothing to do with what you're doing, because there's just every type of person, anything related to games will be there, but you can't just walk up to somebody and have something in common with them necessarily. Where with
they might not be using your engine or even doing dev, right? They could be like a producer, an artist, or
they could be a salesperson for a button thing for gaming controllers. That it's like, wait, you're way down this.
That's like really specific.
Yeah, it could be anything.
I met that guy.
Yeah. But Unite was always the access to people who worked at Unity to help with, especially as a newer developer. That was always helpful, even though I didn't always understand everything that was going on. I know that the Unite LA one, where I was able to speak, that was really fun. I joined they had I forget what they call it, but basically a special training day. It was an all-day thing, and I made the mistake of flying down there that morning, and so I woke up at like 4 a.m. I wasn't able to sleep the night before, so I sat in the very front of the group because I wanted to really pay attention, but everything was mostly over my head, and so I was just falling asleep the whole time. So at some point, I just left my computer there, turned it into sleep mode, left my computer, and went back to my room and took a nap. And I came back and then followed along from there.
Uh,
But it was fun, and I remember the people, since I was right in the front, the people giving the talk were like looking at me so often. And I was just like trying to stifle yawns and stuff. I felt bad, but I was there.
yeah, you got to get a rest right before I feel. I got to make sure to do that too if I'm heading up there.
Yeah, always come the day before so you can get a good night's sleep. Otherwise, you're paying a lot of money to be there, you know.
To fall asleep, struggling, want to go back to the hotel and sleep.
Yep. And same. I mean, with GDC, I've noticed people always leave on Friday. Like people are leaving Friday morning, and I'm like, well, I get Friday's the last day, but you're missing out on that last day of whatever. But I guess people, you know, want to get back, so they rush, and you see so many people with their suitcases.
They're tired.
If the last day is on Friday, you could stay there and just leave on Saturday when it's gonna be less crazy.
That's what I would do, but that's just me.
We're down to the semifinals of the giveaway battle right now. We got 8 people left.
Damn, I just got destroyed.
2 paladins, 1 wizard. Oh, let's see what ends at the end of this round. The last
killed me. Who's that in the upper left? I can't see the name.
Mattis, Mattis. Or let's make them bigger so you can see them all.
Yeah,
we'll see the final 4 after this paladin and warrior finish it off. Oh, we got to get rid of that text there. Okay, so we've got 2 No, what is this? What do we have left? Oh, 1 of each. Interesting. Check that out. We got 1 wizard, 1 paladin, 1 assassin, 1 warrior, and the only thing standing out is 2 werewolves, which again I think steal 1 life every hit.
Is 1 an assassin werewolf?
Mattis die.
Oh, yeah, no, the werewolves are warriors and paladins.
All right, good.
Oh, Mattis won. Mattis assassinated Majestic. Now we've got a rat assassin up against, let's see, what's it going to be? Some sort of werewolf, either a warrior or a paladin. This is our game balancing session of the game dev show.
There can't be a paladin werewolf, man.
Well,
what is that?
Why not? You want me to add race and class restrictions now?
There needs to be race class restrictions, and there needs to be like XP.
What kind of game is this?
Based on their race.
Yeah, these constraints are constraining.
Oh, and now we need more attack animations. One of the things I do plan on doing soon, probably not
animated health bars, though. I think animated health bars would help balance
those two. I was thinking of Andrew's characters, but animated health bars too. Andrew's characters with some animations would be cool. All right, so here we go.
Okay.
Well, you can talk while they battle.
No, now I got interested, so now I'm leaving it.
Me too.
Mattis. Oh, this is close. Who's gonna win? And the tank wins. So we got a paladin, werewolf. Minatos. And just send me an email and I will send you your code. Congratulations. It's Jason at game.courses. So congrats on that. And if you want to win, come back next week and we'll do another one. Also, don't forget to hit like and subscribe and all that stuff.
Paladin werewolf.
That's what you get, Mattis. You don't mess with me. You don't kill Salim.
So Jason's saying that we should go with a non-randomly picked color palette.
Again, animated health bars seems like it should be the top priority.
I mean, what's the point without that?
I mean, what game are you making, dude?
Yeah.
And this is from the man who's going to make Barbarian 3 after he's already crushed it with Barbarian 2. You should listen to
Yeah.
I don't know. Consistent margins do seem crazy. Jason's in the chat with all these insane ideas. Totally.
Yeah.
I love that he's just chilling, just like critiquing all.
I'm just waiting for Jira tickets to pop up. That'd be the best.
The peanut gallery here.
Adjust color. He's not wrong though. He's right on every one of those points, and a lot more.
Oh man, it's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, I still want to make it into like a battle arena though, where all 8 players just run in and start hitting each other. I just haven't figured out how that works.
Gotcha.
How you don't just pick a healer and win.
Hit more than one target.
Yeah, something like let you hit more than one
could-
target, let you
you
do other
could,
things.
You could give them cone attacks and give them knocks and stuff, so they're forced to move around.
Yeah.
Give them like whirlwind attacks, 360 attacks, and things like that, and then it would force them to move around the arena and knock against the walls and stuff, and then you'd have a bunch of chaos.
It definitely could be interesting.
So one other option I know, right now the game is it runs itself, and every attack is its own roll of the dice, right? So if you did an 8-player version, you could do all those dice rolls before to basically figure out who wins, and then go backwards from there and play it out. So you figure out, okay, the paladin werewolf wins. So what needs to happen in order to get there? Go backwards, and then replay it live. So the computer already knows who won before it starts, but then we get to experience that, and defeats that would also defeat all the issues with some being overpowered, because technically you could just make it choose one of these 8 to win, and then it's super fair if that's what you want to go with.
If Salim versus Mattis lose every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I just want to make it like a game where they're playing and like they're playing with real stats and doing things like controlling stuff. Other times just random. It's
well,
tough.
I mean, you could, since you've got integration with the chat, you could allow people to kind of influence it, like.
Yeah, as I'm saying, let them control their own character, or it could make like a remote service, a web player where they can control their character, start battling and stuff. I don't know.
This is going to morph into an MMO, I suppose.
I mean, then it's that. I mean, if you let them control their characters, it becomes not just like an open field for anyone to win. At that point, it's all skill based. At that point,
that is true. Or it could be maybe it could be like a choose your attacks. Like I don't know.
Will it be animated health bars, Jason?
That's what he was saying. Jason's story just said there's 100% chance he'll have animated health bars in by next week.
He promises.
If only.
I mean, I made a bigger arena. I got rid of all that stuff and cleaned it up, and you won't use it. So I see how it is, dude.
I'll have to find it to see if it's still in there. It got committed in the source control. Actually, I probably need to make sure everything's committed anyway. So you guys want to take any other questions? Is there anything else that's popped up in here that you want to jump onto?
Well, we've been goofing around, so I don't.
Yeah. Well, we talk about giveaways and stuff, like the pledge system, being able to pledge allegiance to Salim. That code is actually there and practically works. I just need to give it some bonuses and a UI. You should do that. So you can. It was set up so you could pledge to anybody that was on the stream, and then it would show how many people and give you a bonus.
Gotcha. That's cool.
I don't know what that bonus is, but yeah, figure it out. Maybe we can each pick a bonus each week. You can pick which one you want to go to. It'd be interesting. All right. So there was one interesting question here that doesn't have an answer yet. Does Salim have a YouTube channel?
Yes.
Not yet. Soon, probably by next week too. That's my guess, right?
I have one. I just haven't done anything with it because I don't have the time.
Another question from Jason's story: do you find it hard to keep the show entertaining without Jason's story there?
I don't know.
Yes.
Am I a good stand-in? No.
Well, you are, except your accent is just terrible. You don't sound Irish at all. And
I don't have stories about how I created JetBrains Writer while I was working in a bar as a kid.
Or you don't.
Solving logic problems.
It is sad without Jason here. And no Jason, no Yorai.
Yeah, I do. I do miss you guys. Of course, I haven't been around for life reasons, but at some point I guess the gang will get all back together.
And Mattis had a great comment that he didn't even notice that he had destroyed Salim and must watch that again later over and
I made it to the that was the quarterfinals.
That should probably be like your first YouTube video, just a short of you getting stomped live.
Yeah, Yeah, that's
This is what happens when Saleem gets online.
when I play Elden Ring, I let people invade. This is what happens. Oh
Nicholas
wait,
thinks that Jason, you or I have been stuck playing that's possible.
is that actually true?
They're just determined to figure out how to make that lever.
Oh, they leave. They're all
I can't get
no.
Figure it out.
No, they're the ones that left. They're the ones that left that message for you.
Oh man, they got me.
Nobody said they missed Dave. Of course,
Come
you
on.
missed Dave. Everybody missed Dave.
That's unspoken.
I thought Dave was here. No, he's in chat too, hanging out.
No, Dave is setting up a rig so you can do the interactive Barbarian 3.
It's important because it's going to be VR.
Yeah. He's getting that all set up.
It's
I just knew Dave wasn't available, so I wasn't worried.
It's augmented reality, so it's a crossover between Pokemon Go and an MMO where everyone's a barbarian.
What do you mean, Dave? I said it's unspoken that we miss you. What are you talking about? Why would your feelings be hurt?
He's got no internet now.
But yeah, hopefully, I probably won't be here next week. I'll be here the following week.
Oh, hopefully you won't be here next week.
My brain was heading down the freeway, then it just got off of the nearest exit for some reason. But yeah, I will more than likely not be here next week, but I should be here the following week. Trying to at least do every other week. I'll be in Texas at that point.
So you'll be broadcasting live from Texas.
You get to experience my niece and all her sunshininess.
Now, are you going to wear a nice big cowboy hat?
No, my buddy keeps telling me he wants to take me out and give me a cowboy hat.
I feel like you should, like, when you're in Texas, that way people can just differentiate on the stream and know where you are.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're wearing your cowboy hat one day or, like, your surfer outfit the other day, you can switch back and forth.
Yeah, this is my surfer outfit.
That's about right for a surfer outfit, to be fair. Yeah. It's not too far.
Yeah. Oh, Barbarian 4. That's good. What is Barbarian 4?
Yeah. Barbarian 4 requires some new technology to be invented.
Is that part of the metaverse?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we need contact lenses for Barbarian 4 to work properly. Everyone needs to have special contact lenses and haptic gloves.
I think Google's already made those, haven't they?
Apparently Facebook's working on them too. I actually watched yesterday. I watched like a 2-hour interview with Zuckerberg on Lex Friedman's channel. It was just kind of interesting. I was just curious to see I like watching Lex Friedman's channel anyway because he just talks to a bunch of random interesting people. And then I thought it'd be kind of an interesting interview where it's just kind of like getting to information and not so much like most of the stuff that I think you see with the guys like that, they're either it's a presentation where they're talking about something like here's the things to hit and they've got like this whole thing done, or they're like defending against some attack from Congress or something else. And I thought it'd be kind of like an interesting thing to see something on somebody who's just kind of like interested in the tech side. So it was like a 2-hour thing, mostly just about the actual technology, not so much about like the all the other things that come up when it comes to Zuckerberg and Facebook and all that. So it was pretty interesting, just discussion largely about the technology for not just metaverse stuff, but the Facebook stuff that they have as well, the AI and all of the things that have been happening over the time. So I was surprisingly interesting conversation. Because I think you see interviews like that, you don't expect it to be like engaging, but I found it pretty interesting and engaging. But I'm also weird, so man, I'll link that in the description.
You can get it on any podcast app too. But I'm a little cynical when it comes to Facebook Meta stuff and specifically Mark Zuckerberg. I do think he has a very high view of the things they've been doing, which makes sense. And I wonder how much of it was not completely true from his side, if that makes sense. Not saying that things are untrue, but certainly a lot of the dialogue, especially when they talked about more controversial topics, seem to be, like, I hear you, but let's ground this in something that makes that not true, and then talk about it. which
Yeah.
which is a very good way of dismissing it without, like, acknowledging that it's true, but then talking about why it's not exactly true in a world that ignores a lot of why it's true, if that makes sense. But
Right.
he's very well trained for these things, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
You
No,
know,
I think it'd be interesting to see another really like more combative one too.
yeah,
To follow up on some of those, but I think there are just a lot of things that I wouldn't have normally seen because it was a very relaxed environment.
yes,
Well, I think Dave is right. Next week's show should be all about the metaverse, NFTs, and singleton. So
yeah.
meta teas tons.
But
Something
in
like
order to
that.
play the Rider game, you have to get an NFT.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh
you
yeah.
have to buy an
We
NFT.
can
You
get
have
an
to buy
NFT
a
of the fight
Bitcoin.
of me getting killed.
Yeah.
Man, I've been watching so many of these NFT things. I was just watching another video yesterday about those the fake Pokemon NFTs that they did. They were like 3 Ethereum per egg, and now they're down to like a couple $100 an egg, or so. They've dropped like 90% because it's not actually a thing. Like somebody just made an NFT loosely based off the Pokemon name. Like, oh yeah, well, let's invest a bunch of money. It's just amazing to me, like the amount of stuff people would just throw cash at with those investment
It, every few days,
ideas. I
every few
actually have
days I
my
get
my
an email.
CoffeeZilla shirt on today.
Have you guys seen the
Uh,
have you seen the new Half-Life mod that's been in development for 17 years?
No.
I think it's like a mod where the Marines take over Black Mesa or something. It's kind of cool because it's like 17-year development project and like passion. Like we're getting this out and it's out. It's on Steam. Um, so it's pretty cool thing. Just general gaming news. It's like one of those because we always talk about like sticking with something, and Andrew's like an example. He wants to get his game out. Um, no matter how long it takes. So that's like an example of just pure dedication. Too, and we talked about nostalgia earlier as well. Like you see that and you want to go back and play Half-Life because, yeah, I mean, say what you will, playing Half-Life again, it's still like it's not the shiniest thing in the world. It's still just a fantastic game. So seeing news that because Valve will never make a freaking true Half-Life 3, but I guess we can have 17-year projects for the original game come out and get us still excited about Half-Life. So over the next months, it'll probably be more rumors of Half-Life 3 is coming out. That's what the 17-year project was about, or something like that. You'll just start seeing people talk about that for the rest of the year. But yeah, that was it. I thought it was interesting.
No, I have to check it out. If you have a link, I'll put that in the description too. Some people and check it out. I want to go see it too. I missed Half-Life. It was fun stuff. Been a while. I get too many games to play though. I need to go grab Elden Ring and a couple other things. I need to steal Andrew's copy.
So far, you can have it. Just tell me how to do the lever when you figure it out.
Yeah, if I ever do. All right. Well, I think we can probably wrap it up here today. If you guys want to come back, what do I want to say here? Subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment down below. Let me know if you have any suggestions, recommendations, or questions. There's a link down there for a form where you can submit questions, and we might just answer them in the next episode. And if you want to win a writer license and all that stuff, make sure you come back as well. Go check out all of the links down below for Andrew's awesome art assets. You can send Jason Story a coffee down there somewhere. He's in chat. Say hello to him. And go subscribe, watch my other videos, check out the courses and all that stuff. All right, I think I'm done. You guys got any final words you want to say before we say goodbye?
Have you guys talked about the Steam Deck at all?
No, I'm going to wait for Yorai to come back for that.
Did he get one?
I think he might.
Well, I know
but he definitely knows the most about it, and I felt like we should give him. He's been actually developing for it.
Yeah, I assume he's been developing.
Had some news on it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So yeah, if you want to hear about the Steam Deck, make sure you come back next week. We'll talk about that in depth as much as possible too.
Next week, I'll be in the peanut gallery with Jason and Dave.
Maybe it'll be the week after that. We'll talk about it again too.
Okay. All right.
And Andrew, any final parting words?
Not
Things
really.
people need to go check out? Any new big sales coming up?
Not that I know of. I mean, there's the new low poly stuff are on launch discounts still, I think, for another day or two. But those aren't the most exciting. They're great for low poly characters, but you know.
There's the Humble Bundle down below too. The Cinti Low Poly Humble Bundle one, which is a pretty good deal. Like ton of assets for $20. So go check that out. All right, I guess I'll hit the button and we'll see you all again next week. Thanks again for coming out. Again, don't forget to hit all those buttons and go.
Barbarian 4. Watch out.
Yep.
Barbarian 4
Barbarian
coming
4.
out.
2,
Wait
3,
for
4.
5.
Shit, we're going fast, man. All right, see you guys next week.
Bye.